Dan, I think I put my finger on why I think this is the most inconsequential NBA Finals of all time. It's not just the teams. It's like the last few NBA Finals, because LeBron's pretty much always been in it, there's some sort of legacy on the line. And when you go from like Durant and Steph Curry and LeBron James...
Oh, but Mike, you don't care enough about Chris Paul.
That's what I'm saying. And then you go to Chris Paul, yeah, this could be career-defining for him, but it's like, I didn't give a shit when Stockton didn't get one. I can't work myself up to this is the big storyline.
You have really made people angry with you, and we're getting the accusation from every turn because I'm less interested in this entire basketball playoff just because of the damage they've done to all the bodies and because I find the meat grinder greed to be a distortion of the measurements. And so
I get it. I'd be doing it too if I were a Bucks or Suns fan. I'd be hitting someone
but
like
also they're talking about the Heat last season, and we suffered no dilution of enthusiasm on that one. But my excuse is that I couldn't believe how beautiful the basketball was. I was hypnotized by Denver, Utah last year.
And there was just playoff history with those teams. Come on, the one of the greatest regular season teams of all time lost in the second round to the Miami Heat, and they've had their thing with the Boston Celtics. Like, okay, you want to do that and call out it's my team. Yes, I was more invested in the NBA Finals last year because my team was playing in it against LeBron James.
And
bit of a history there.
And
sue me.
Furthermore, though, you were more interested because you love the underdog story that you're not extending to the Phoenix Suns.
Well, they were a top seed. They were the second seed in there, but I get it. I love Monty Williams and I love his story, and I'm just not really connecting with this NBA Finals. What I'm saying is not this hot take, and I can Suns and Bucks fans, by all means, get in my mentions, defend.
You're
your
not
play.
the only one. It's how America feels, Mike.
I mean, the numbers kind of back me up on that. No, it's just not. It's just not for me. I'm sure there's a lot of people, and maybe ultimately down the line will realize, hey, this was really good for the sport. We made Giannis, who was already kind of a superstar, a bigger star, and Devin Booker arrives on the scene. Maybe in a couple of years we'll realize this was a reset on the NBA and there's more parity and it's just not the same cast of characters. I happen to like having the same cast of characters.
Do you think the Euros being on in recent weeks has kind of affected your interest in this finals?
No, not necessarily, because if the Heat were playing in it, I'd still be getting up for it. But yeah, when I see a sporting event like I have all month long with a great Euro tournament, and then I settle into my couch at night, it's just like such a come down from where I'd been in the afternoon and from like how I enjoy it, because I'll enjoy Austria playing in the Euro with absolutely zero connection to them than I would watching Milwaukee and Phoenix. Just have zero interest for it. The only reason I am paying attention to it with a glance occasionally at a muted television is because I do this for a living.
There's a big market bias here, and I wonder about this too, because the game has changed so much. Is the style of Antetokounmpo, which doesn't have a lot of precedent, is it something that's not aesthetically pleasing to you?
I'll go the other way on that. I actually enjoy that. I found that refreshing. I found it refreshing that every time I looked up, a Milwaukee Buck was just destroying Phoenix on the inside. I didn't see Milwaukee take a three whenever I was glancing up there. The other stuff, that I found kind of boring, which is just, we're going to take 38 three-pointers a game.
Oh, but the Suns are fun when they're making them and they're moving the ball.
When there's ball movement and they're making them, it's great. And Jay Crowder was good. I noticed that yesterday, but it's just, it becomes redundant. When I grew up watching the NBA, every team had an identity, and we've gotten away from that now. It's actually cool to see the Milwaukee Bucks have a distinct identity.
Those benches are pretty thin, huh? Both teams, those benches are pretty thin.
Injuries. We had the headlining injuries of Anthony Davis earlier on, and Harden and Kyrie, and it's not sexy, but Saric, Craig, DiVincenzo, their absences are having an effect on this finals.
Amin is flying in on a red eye. He will be here shortly. He made a rookie mistake. It is an obvious rookie mistake, Mike. I can't believe Amin Elhassan is guilty of making it. He changed his mind mid-series, and now he can just be wrong a number of different ways. It's not just even being wrong once. It's all sorts of ways that he can be wrong. And the part that I don't get, because we talked some about this after Milwaukee beat the Heat in 4 games, and I'm going to ask him about this. I don't feel like you can go from telling me that the difference between Bucks Heat last year, when the Heat won in 5 games, and this year, Bucks Heat, Bucks winning in 4, the difference is the Bucks are so much better of a team than they were last year, and then you bail on them after 2 games. If you're telling me that they're so much better than the team that went to the finals last year, that they got so much better, that it's about Drew Holiday and not about wear and tear on the body, not about bubble team, that you're telling me the Bucks got that much better, how do you bail on them after 2 games before they played a home game?
I respect how much you're trying right now with this series, but I'm just with Mike on this. It's just I was watching last night. I'm like, we got to talk about this tomorrow. And I'm just like, pfft.
Yeah, but your last phrases on this show was, I had a gummy this morning.
That's true.
You have not done your best work recently in terms of effort
But it's
and passion.
just, see, now you're deflecting because the series is just that uninteresting. You're like, I got to go back to the gummy because this is like I gave everything right there in the series. It's all I got.
The gummy was good content,
Thank
unlike
you.
Suns Bucks.
Yeah.
Should Meadowlark be drug testing?
Nah, it's 2021.
He did it in
Yeah, it was legal there. Whatever
legal.
state, which
Yeah,
state
that
was I
can't
in?
be.
You're not supposed to do it when you're working.
Well, it was after the round. I was working.
You were
I was
on
golfing.
air with us. Your excuse for not being good on air
Wait,
was...
Is that a rule that you're not supposed to be doing that while you're working if it's legal within the state?
You tell me.
Well, I don't drink on the job, but if we're going to start doing that, then Dan, look at him. Mirror. I mean, you presently have a bottle of bourbon in front of you. You drank for an entire week on the air straight from a bottle of tequila. Look at you throwing stones from your glass house, fat man.
Yeah.
I apologize for calling you fat man. That was gratuitous.
It's quite the audience always likes it, Mike.
But I could have been more creative with it.
Okay.
I could have like called you Oliver Platt or something like that. But I just
Oliver Fat.
Nah, well, I think Platt. I thought about it, but Fat's just too on the nose. So I just called you Fat Man instead.
How about Pablo Lopez, huh?
Pablito, little Pablito. Billy, were you excited by that? The Marlins at the top of their rotation do have 2 guys who feel like aces.
3 guys.
Were you excited by Pablito with 9 straight strikeouts?
Yeah, I mean, of course it was what it was. Everybody tuned in to see number 10, and then he didn't get number 10. But yeah, no, the Marlins start of the rotation is pretty good. They have Sandy, they have Pablo, they have All-Star Trevor Rogers. By the way, the All-Star game tomorrow and Home Run Derby tonight. Who knew?
I want to read something to you because...
You legitimately broke that news to me.
No.
Yeah,
It
I had
snuck
no
up
idea.
on everybody, I think.
It really did. But the news of the Marlins Braves series, even though Pablo Lopez tied a major league record, is what happened to Acuna. And really the petty behavior of the Miami Marlins on social media, adding fuel to this budding rivalry between the 2 clubs, Billy.
That's not petty behavior. That's one employee who did something and kind of went wrong. You make it seem like Derek Jeter had a meeting. He's like, you know what we should do? We should go on social media and we should do. It's like, no offense. It's like if Juju Gotti does something, like maybe let's not tweet that out and let's take it down. I'm sure they talked to someone about it.
I'm sure, Billy, if Juju Gotti does something that stains us, I'm sure that won't come back on me at all.
It has in the past. But for those that probably don't know what we're talking about, is on the play that Ronald Acuna injured himself on. It was a deep fly ball by Jazz Chisholm, and Acuna injured himself while trying to extend his body to make a play on this ball. Came down awkwardly. Chisholm ended up getting an inside the park home run, and a very jovial Marlins Twitter account sent a tweet to the effect of, "Who wants to see an inside the park home run by Jazz Chisholm?" After one of the
inside the park home run.
After one of the more dynamic players in the game, one of the big superstars, injured himself severely on the play.
Problem with it.
That account, did that come from the same account that after they lost a game 8-7 the other day, the Marlins official account put out, "We have no comment at this time"? Like, you're going to have to take the good with the bad if you're going to have a social media account that is a little flippant.
I've enjoyed watching the Diamondbacks suffer through this season. Yeah. After that drubbing that they got at the hands of the Dodgers, I think they lost 22-1. They just tweeted out, like, you can look up the score. You don't need us to tell you.
Billy, I want to ask you this because Astro Greg is writing in here.
Oh, God.
Billy needs to shut down that take about Major League Baseball All-Stars opting out of the game. Yadier Molina was announced as a replacement for an opted-out player, and then he subsequently opted out to not play. This is not an Astro thing as he's trying to make it. Bad take! !
I'm not making it an Astro thing because I went after DeGrom also. I just also happen to hate the Astros, who are cowards and are hiding from the All-Star game because they don't want to get booed. It's not an Astro thing. It's a baseball problem. They shouldn't have all these stars opting out of the All-Star game. It's ridiculous. It's becoming the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl's a joke, right? We can all agree the Pro Bowl's a joke. 90% of the NFL makes the Pro Bowl every year because everybody opts out, so they just keep doing replacement after replacement. So everybody's a Pro Bowler. It's the same thing with the All-Star game this season. Everybody's opting out, and it's kind of ridiculous.
The Astros, though, basically yesterday go into the break, Billy, and not unlike Dustin Poirier, they say everyone booing can kiss my whole asshole. The Astros down against the Yankees. They are defiant cheaters. They are a team
who paint themselves as victims, by the way, which is part of the problem because they're defiant cheaters who had absolutely no consequences and somehow have convinced themselves that they're victims of their own cheating, which is absurd.
They remind me of some of the things happening in politics these days where the shamelessness is so unbound that, Matt Gaetz, it's just inexplicable, the amount of shame that you're willing to endure. And, the president of the country did this recently. By the way, we should talk about the Cuba stuff because Biden's got a real chance off our shores here to have some legacy things in two countries off our shores that could use some help with their suffering. But the Houston Astros, Billy, specifically yesterday, it was Altuve sends them into the All-Star break with a walk-off homer against the Yankees. And then when I say defiant cheaters, at home plate, after the Yankees had 14 walks and lost, Altuve gets to home plate and they tear off his shirt, see no wires, he's not cheating now. What are you guys doing? Like, they're just basically telling everyone to bleep off, and they're headed into the All-Star break, and now their guys don't want to even play in this All-Star game, but they really, on the way into the All-Star break, Billy, they hit you with, you can kiss my whole asshole.
Good for them. That's what people say who don't care.
The Poirier thing was weird. Not the fight, but the antics after the fight, and how Dustin Poirier took strange exception to the fact that Conor McGregor said that he wanted to kill him. Now, I'm not an MMA expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I've seen a few combat sports, and in the build-up to a fight, that's something that I've heard before. I don't always hear, I'm going to your wife because she's in my DMs.
He's fine with that, though.
Yeah, but no, he was cool with that. My wife and I are solid. And by the way, I saw a photo of your wife shooting the bird at Connor. I don't think she was as solid as you were thinking about the whole experience, but he's still holding on to this. Connor crossed the line. The wife stuff was fine, but he said he was going to kill me.
His wife was shooting him a bird while he sat in the corner. Joe Rogan did the interview sitting next to him, which was funny. But Conor McGregor talking trash after having lost while not being able to physically get up. And also, Mike, talking trash about before the fight, you're leaving here on a stretcher, and then he himself leaving on a stretcher. I want to talk with Ariel Helwani today about where Conor's legacy is, because we didn't talk about this part of it enough, right? Because it sounded like I was smearing a very good fighter, and you brought up the PJ Penn fight, when I can make the argument that BJ Penn's prime was better than Conor McGregor's prime, even though McGregor...
I brought up the Aldo fight.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I can make an argument on behalf of a number of fighters who don't get the paydays, that his fame and his money is disproportionate to his excellence, and he's still on his ass running his mouth while he's lost the fight. And there'll be another one, and there'll be another payday. But we are a bit of suckers on this guy just because
now.
But his fighting style is fun. He does not back down. So his fighting style is fun. And he is an above-average fighter, but he hasn't fought very much the last 5 years.
No, he has one win since 2016.
He's still a payday, though, when you say now, but he's still going to get that gate again and again. The next fight will be the same thing because of his mouth, not because of his skills.
I think his next fight will be against Poirier. I think Dana White alluded to that. Poirier's got another fight lined up, and they're going to give Conor the time to heal. And because Conor got hurt, it's actually the way that the fight ended was actually better for Conor than if he didn't suffer that injury to his ankle, because Poirier was going to drill him into that mat if that fight continued. And it would have been maybe one of those things that we start wondering, how many pay-per-view big buys does this guy have? The fact that he gets hurt, he gets a hold on to that. So I think it's good. But I'm not going to disparage Conor McGregor, because at a point you could have definitely made pound-for-pound argument with him. Aldo was one of the more dominant mixed martial artists we had ever seen, and he got smoked by Conor McGregor.
I don't make it a disparagement. I don't mean it as a disparagement. I just mean in a sport where nobody makes money. In a sport where the percentages are lopsided, and that's one of your big earners, it's not because of his excellence. It's his ability. It's his excellence combined with his ability to sell a fight with his mouth.
And there isn't a real secret to it. Yeah, you have to have the natural-born charisma, but I don't even think Conor had that. I remember Conor, like, early on.
Not at the beginning.
He didn't necessarily have that character fleshed out, and he learned how to get pay-per-view buys. And it's always the same character. It's always derivative of Muhammad Ali, and Conor McGregor just went more foul-mouthed with it. There seems to be only one archetype to really make yourself a star in that sport. And usually you can do it with dominance, but you have to be ultra dominant. And Conor McGregor is certainly not there anymore, so he's in this celebrity sort of quadrant.
I thought the symbolism was interesting. The way that I took him sitting down there being interviewed and yelling things that many of which I didn't even understand because his accent is so thick. I thought that was him just grabbing at money in that moment while his body had betrayed him. Just still, let me do something.
Yeah, begging for a doctor stoppage.
Please, let me do something here that can continue to sell my fight, because the round I gave you is not enough, and the fights I've given you for the last 5 years, they're not enough.
But they've been interesting. Every single one of his fights have been interesting. Even when he gets his ass handed to him, it still feels like an occasion. I think I've purchased or I've gone to a bar for every McGregor fight. I still find it interesting, and every time I'm not disappointed. That fight that whole card was awesome. I had a really good time watching that, and even though the fight only lasted that one round, it was an awesome one round.
I want to talk about the guy who beat Greg Hardy in a second, but you spoke of fights, and I can't believe I've taken this long to get to it, but the only reason I have is because Stugotz just walked in, because I thought the story of the weekend was Fancy Lad saying to me, Fancy Lad, I don't know if any of you can picture this from Chris Wittyngham. Chris Cody, you just spent a lovely weekend in Tahoe with Stugotz and Chris Wittyngham, Tony, Greg Cody, your father. All of it seemed lovely, and I was shocked to hear Chris Wittyngham say, when I did not know that he was even capable of this, and I'm curious whether you guys knew that he was capable of this. He described his feelings toward Stugotz as being white-hot rage.
Welcome to the club. Yeah, welcome. Welcome to the party, pal.
Stugotz, your antics on Friday were just on another level, man. I got the full Gotts experience for the first time, and it was funny because I was kind of looking for sympathy from the other guys, and everyone just looked at me and went, "Oh, you got Stugotz, welcome."
You lost your virginity to the Stugotz scam, and all of them looked at you like, what's the big deal? It's just Stugotz being Stugotz. But tell people, what happened? What triggered? First of all, before I go down this path, Tony, Chris, Roy, yes or no, you knew that Chris Wittyngham, Fancy Lad, was capable of white-hot rage?
No, not before this weekend, but I saw it.
I didn't know that was white-hot rage. I thought he looked pretty calm and collected.
We add Stugotz into the mix. Yes.
Okay.
Anybody is capable.
Okay.
Of
So Chris,
rage.
He was pacing.
All right.
He couldn't sit still at one point. I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm angry."
Okay. So what happened though? What happened as you got Stugotz, and how little sympathy did you get from the group?
So it was basically just like, we've all been here before. Got nothing for you. Sorry. But it begins on Thursday after our round and after we recorded what ended up becoming Friday's local hour, when I'm sat in the press room and Stugotz is trying to figure out how he's going to get to New Jersey from Lake Tahoe. I didn't know at any point that he had to get to New Jersey for a lacrosse tournament. Apparently, it was in the calendar. But he's trying to figure out how to get there. And he's asking...
It is. I'm looking at it right now, by the way.
He's asking me, so... what is the earliest that I can leave on Friday?
First sign right there. I was like, he's out. He's gone.
And have fulfilled my responsibilities. And I said, at the end of the show. The show usually finishes recording sometime between 8:30 and 9 Pacific time. And so I said, that's the earliest you can go. And that's where we left it, right? He said, maybe I'll take the red eye. Maybe I'll find an afternoon.
All his flights had been booked at that point. No, all the maybes were lies.
It's just
nothing.
But first off, how do you leave it so late that you're leaving on a Friday and you're booking it on a Thursday afternoon?
I mean, and then he makes it about the earthquake.
Things changed, man. I mean,
then it was about Travis Kelce.
All lies.
The Travis Kelce thing is what really sent me in a fit of white hot rage.
What was that? Me getting him on? Or?
No. It was you saying the only. So you said to me, you texted me in the morning.
Walking over to him and getting him on, pulling him over to the set. What was it? What upset you about it?
You texted me.
I don't think you're allowed to take a victory lap. That you guys had a whole golf vacation so you could get us Travis Kelce for 10 minutes and hug Aaron Rodgers, and we didn't actually get anybody
Alfonso
else.
Ribeiro. I mean,
we didn't get anybody else. So I don't know. You can take a victory lap on how many guests you got us.
He texts me. So Nick Casanova at NBC, who's a legend, by the way, a hero, set us up at Lake Tahoe, was brilliant. So he says to me, I texted him, is the access we're going to get on Friday worth it? And he said, no, right? So Stugotz is telling me it isn't worth it for me to stay. And then I learned that the ask that made him realize that it wasn't worth it, the ask was, can I walk 18 holes of the American Century Championship at Lake Tahoe with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Timberlake, and Travis Kelce holding a microphone in the middle of a televised tournament, just around with them?
Good idea.
And it is a good idea. It's also the most unreasonable idea you could possibly have come up with, and that the only way that it would be worth it for you to stay. How is that the only way that would be worth it for you to stay?
Kelce was in.
Job.
I mean, Kelce was in. I did my job. I got Kelce on. I mean, I got Alfonso on. I played golf. I did 1.5 shows, and then I got out of town. I mean, I had to. Earthquakes.
You wanted inside the rope access, which we got, by the way. So you could have had that access on that Friday.
No, but he wanted to literally walk alongside them and just go strutting around the golf course saying, hey, Mahomes, what are you thinking here, buddy?
So I asked Kelce if he was cool with it, and he was. I said, can I talk to Mahomes and Timberlake as well? And he said, of course you can. And then I asked Nick, and Nick said no. So, I mean, listen, at that point, it didn't seem worth it to me. I'm sorry.
He's not going to be able to do that if he doesn't ask. He's not wrong for asking, right?
Right.
I agree. I agree, Billy. It is absolutely worth the ask.
I asked before we went. It's the reason I didn't go. I asked that same Nick, hey, what's our access is going to be? And he said it's not going to be worth it for you guys.
But, there were people around after the 18th hole. Chris Cody got hit by a golf ball by Ray Romano. There was all kinds of stuff that we did while we were there. If Stugotz hung around, we could have just, set up shop on he set up shop on the driving range. You could have set up shop after the 18th hole and grab people for interviews after their press conferences, but instead it wasn't worth it because we couldn't walk the course with Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Timberlake.
Herein lies the problem, okay? That I still, 20 years, well, I am, you're right, okay? I am the problem.
This is the symbolic Stugotz experience in all of its glory. Do the very bare minimum and do it so bare minimum that you enrage others. You enrage and you create more work for your teammates.
The unrageable.
And you soak everyone in lies. And I don't know how you didn't see it. I saw you on the golf course, and I didn't even know where Stugotz was coming to us from. Some other room somewhere, because he couldn't be bothered to carry a microphone for how far?
No, it's not carry a mic. It's just go to the golf course, which is one of the nicest golf courses in the world. And yet we're sat there. My alarm goes off at 4 a.m. so I can have my, equipment set up with 4 microphones ready for everyone to use, including Stugotz's, 4 a.m, I'm up, and I see him in the Zoom from an undisclosed room somewhere. I'm like, what the hell are you doing
From the
there?
airport, probably.
I love that room.
From the airport saying, "Do you maybe I'm going to take a different flight?" When
Delta Lounge,
his flights were booked a long time ago. Chris, I want to talk to you about what happened with Ray Romano because I really feel like you choked in that entire situation.
Oh, big time, Dano.
And I don't know if that was also the gummies' fault as well. But before we get to that, I want to just how, Wittyngham, were you received by the group when you're looking around and you're filled with rage and they're like, yeah, how do you not know your teammate at this point?
Yeah, I texted Mike. He goes, yeah, tough shit. And I also, it was funny. The person who most got an earful about this was on the shuttle back to the hotel was Greg Cody. I'll be curious how tomorrow when he comes in, because I gave him an earful on the way back, and when we got to the Harveys, like, I'm so sorry that you had to listen to that.
It's so funny because this has been 17 years of my life, and here's the worst part of it, Wittyngham, is that you look up and at every point everyone sides with him. Where you're
Yawning
like,
and
this is so clearly the wrong behavior for anyone who's a professional, and then the whole crew sides with him. Like, honest to God, you watch when this ends in betrayal because Stugotz has been hauled off to jail by some sort of entity that governs things. People are going to blame me for not knowing, or they're going to blame me, and they're going to send autographed picture requests to him in jail, and he's going to sign his own deal. He's going to be like Cosby. He's going to have a deal from jail where everyone's applauding him because I did the thing that was wrong by allowing him to be so unprofessional at every turn.
Did you actually go to New Jersey?
Oh, yeah. 5-0, by the way.
I don't believe you.
5-0. We took out everyone, Roy. I mean, this is the
you.
final year of lacrosse for me. 5-0. Big weekend for Florida Select.
I don't believe
Congrats.
you.
Thank you, Billy. I mean, number 1 team in the country, 22s. How about that?
Who cares?
God damn.
This Kucherov.
This motherfucker. I'm tired of this guy, man. He's just shoving it in everybody's face now, this guy.
Mm-hmm.
This guy.
Wow. Okay. Very strong.
Wow, Roy.
It's Monday morning. Very aggressive. We need to.
Now, Kucherov's earned this, though.
Well,
I mean,
he's earned what? He's earned the trophy.
he's earned Roy telling him to go himself.
He's earned the trophy. Last time we saw him, he was shirtless. The torso looked exactly the way you thought it would. He was gloating. He was defiant. He was making fun of Montreal. He's a winner. And now he's on a boat photographed with a T-shirt that reads $18 million over the salary cap.
I have to make a startling revelation here because I think I was leader of the pack in saying something doesn't smell right with these Tampa Bay Lightning characters, and I hate the city and I hate the team. I flipped.
I love him.
They're badasses, man.
It's my for the sports weekend.
What Kucherov did was one of the more
Oh my
badass.
God.
I told you so.
He cheated.
Eat it. Wear it, you losers. You were complaining for months on end, shoved it up your ass. Mm-hmm. It is so badass what the Tampa Bay Lightning did. And they got 2 celebrations in the shortest time span, I think, in recorded history. Just, I bowed to them. They kicked our asses. They're a great team, and they got characters now.
You say that as somebody who lives in Florida. I cannot imagine the rage that boils through Canada as their sport is taken over by a team from Tampa.
No, just Montreal. Everybody else in Canada is laughing at Montreal.
Yeah, I think Dan's overall point is Canada's like, what the hell is going on down there? Like, Florida's the white hot center of the hockey universe now. But I think for this one, because of the separatist movement and how Canada feels about Montreal and Quebec, that they were actually pretty good with this one Stanley Cup result for the most part.
I'm just talking about the country that invented the sport, the country that takes a national pride in the identity of the sport, seeing Tampa win 2 championships when the entire country is dying for championships in that sport.
I gotta tell you, they probably felt that way when the Stars won in '99. By the way, no goal. But when they won in '99, they probably felt that way. They're probably used to it now.
They felt that way about the Islanders in the 80s. They did. This little team on Long Island is dominating hockey.
Guys, though, come on. It's Tampa.
Yeah, you're right.
Like,
I understand.
Come on,
Yeah.
it's Tampa. Like,
You're right.
you've got to be kidding me. It's not even Miami. It's Tampa dominating the sport. Your country can't do anything in the sport. And Kucherov is wearing a shirt after making fun of Montreal, saying, losers, you won your championship in the last round. Now we'll celebrate with the real trophy. You know I love swag, and now wearing T-shirts where he's like, yeah, over the salary cap, and what?
I know you had the connection point of early on because we were all super into this Panthers season, and there was a tinge of a local sports aspect to it, but I felt like it was a star-making turn for hockey, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are good for hockey because there is no way under usual circumstances that this deep into July, granted the pandemic altered the schedule a little bit, but you're actually talking about a hockey player and a hockey team. That's massive.
Mike, I am jealous. Just like I told Billy the other day that when I saw what was happening in Atlanta, and I see all those cell phones taken out and everyone turning on their flashlights, and it is a Friday night in Atlanta, and that ballpark is full. And I saw the Marlins beat that Atlanta team at the height of it, building that generational fan base, right? I think it's Ross Tucker, who you had on Stupidity, who describes players and teams as fan makers. Like the Dolphins, Dan Marino is a fan maker. I'm jealous of Tampa Bay because they've now got a generation of hockey fans. Because what they've done the last 2 years is not just excellent and fun, but they've got this team that is just like bleep off. And we don't care what you think of us. We're simply better than everybody in a way that can't be disputed.
Without Kucherov during the regular season, they still put up 75 points. So they were still a very good team. Then you add one of the best players, if not the best player in hockey right now, to a team that's already good.
And Stamkos.
And Stamkos, too. But he was injured, Stamkos.
There are certain cities in America that sports are going to work out no matter what. Like, Browns were terrible for 21 years. You still have interest in the Cleveland Browns over there. Sports work in Cleveland, but it's such a brilliant case study. Hockey, specifically in Tampa, because they even like college hockey over there, hosting a Frozen Four. They took the seeds of what they built with that Martin St. Louis team earlier on and Dave Andrechuk in the early 2000s, and they were just important. They mattered. They mattered for 20 years. They won that championship. Now, those people that were little kids back then during that cup have had kids of their own, and their kids have now seen 2 Stanley Cups, and fortified through winning, they've turned into legitimately one of the great hockey towns on the planet.
Stugotz, the Tampa Bay Rays in their sport with coupons in a bad ballpark have been trying for years, while being smarter than most people, to build some allegiances.
Mm-hmm.
In Tampa, through excellence, that fan base now has generational roots. Mike is telling you right now, I'm not interested in these finals. That's 10 years of him caring that just took 10 years to wear off because of what the Heat did at the beginning of the last decade. And that Heat team is passed down to kids throughout Miami who grew up loving a sports team for the first time with Dwayne Wade, the only one who was doing any winning in this town. It's the coolest thing when that's what you can give your child.
Right.
In this realm, it's the coolest thing where you can pass that down to your child and you can see your child grow up and you can watch vicariously as your child develops the enthusiasms that you had for sports as you begin to outgrow sports.
But don't you think the second they become a bad team, no one goes? Mike, they're not a great sports town. Tampa's not great. Yes.
I think they're so on fire for hockey. If you have several years of misery, that can pretty much happen to anybody outside of a couple key markets that we've already outlined. But maybe we bring this back on Wednesday because I hear you guys talking about it, and for all those reasons, or the exact same reason, the counterpoint is that's why I have zero connection to the Marlins. They didn't even have players stick around long enough. Like, what legends are we going to bring around? We trotted out Mike Piazza, for heaven's sake, when we were highlighting our legends. I can't hand down the colors. I can't hand down the players. I can talk about championships, but it feels like a totally different franchise.
Billy, I saw that last week. I don't know what triggered the conversation. I'm guessing Miguel Rojas did something splendid defensively, as he often does. But I was laughing because I think it was Brendan Tobin who put out a list of top 5 defensive Marlins shortstops of all time.
Oh, wow.
And I was looking at the list of names, and I'm like, it made me a little bit sad.
Gonzalez had to be number one.
He
no?
was number one,
Wow.
yes. And Ameziga was number 5.
Mezzi.
What is your? But it made me want to ask you, Billy. What is your top? He put Rojas at number 2 and Echeverria at number 3, and I don't remember who he had at number 4. But who were your best defensive shortstops for the Marlins?
I'm going to be honest with you. I did not have a list of my top Marlins defensive shortstops ready at the moment, so let me think about this for a second.
It's definitely prisoner of the moment having Rojas second. He had 3 and 4. I forget which order, but he had 3 and 4, Edgar Renteria and Hechavarria. Hechavarria, for me, easy number 2 behind Alex Gonzalez.
He was good defensively. He just couldn't hit.
Right, but we're talking defense.
I know.
I feel like you can put Echeverria ahead of Alex Gonzalez.
No. How dare you? How can you shut up right now? How dare you? Are you insane? Are you crazy?
Alex Gonzalez.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's when you still covered the Marlins. What's happening?
Best defensive infield
Did I hear him correctly?
Ever.
I will fight you.
I mean, my God.
Forever.
If you want NBA Finals talk, we did it last night immediately after the game. You could check out our YouTube channel. Many of you are here right now. And Amin, Tom Haberstroh, Mike, and I just did something. Mike outraged everyone in Phoenix and Milwaukee by crapping all over the finals. Amin Elhassan is flying in from New York. He'll be here momentarily. But if you want some basketball stuff, you can find it concentrated over there. Ariel Helwani is going to join us later in the show. I'm looking forward to that because he can have a conversation outside of ESPN now as the person trying to apply journalism. And I want to talk to him about the events of this weekend. I'd like to get an answer to a question I asked last night immediately after Bucks Phoenix, which is, Stugotz, and I don't know the answer to this question. I haven't looked it up. But if someone could make a couple of calls or do a little bit of research, it would be helpful to find an answer for this question. Sha'Carri Richardson, Stugotz, you saw that she is gone from the Olympics once every 4 years. She's fast, great story. She is being denied something, and you saw how mad people got about the idea that she could lose that spot, work for that hard over marijuana. And I want to ask the legitimate question now that the NBA is not testing for this stuff, and we just had Matt Sullivan on telling us that Kevin Durant smokes like crazy. How is Team USA able to play basketball and lose to Nigeria? And how, I just don't know. Maybe there is an easy answer to the question. The rules are different. Maybe basketball's not governed this way.
They passed the drug test.
I don't think that's what it is.
So you mentioned this on our YouTube last night, and it really stopped everybody in their tracks because we just had Matt Sullivan on telling us that Kevin Durant smokes a ton of marijuana and he's representing Team USA in the Olympics. And how is he going to get past these tests? The answer is he is getting past these tests because every single player on Team USA representing our country in basketball is subject to tests from the World Anti-Doping Agency, and cannabis is included there. They're just getting by these tests the same way, I guess, they always used to.
No way.
What do you mean, no way?
Well,
Stugotz.
Wait, are you surprised that NBA players are finding ways to get past marijuana tests?
Marijuana tests in their league that doesn't actually want to catch them and no longer does it? No. But Olympic drug testing? Yeah. I'm surprised that Olympic drug testing that just got Sha'Carri Richardson gone, I don't think that's about drug testing. That has to be about, it's okay for the professionals. We want the money to be around here. There has to be something. I do not think that Kevin Durant is saying, you know what, Team USA, I'm going to go ahead and abide by these rules now because I care so much about being in the Olympics.
According to an article in The Athletic from May 18th this year, NBA players representing Team USA to resume marijuana testing. So they resume testing in May if they're going to play in the Olympics.
Yeah, Steve Martin also. Dan, do you think Sha'Carri Richardson is the only track star that smokes marijuana, or do you think she's the only one that got caught?
I believe that the drug testing in the Olympics is more eager to catch people doing wrong than NBA drug testing has ever been.
Understood, but do you think she's the only one that smokes marijuana, or do you think she's the only one that got caught?
I don't think she's the only one that smokes marijuana, but I also don't think that she's the only one dumb enough to not know how to do it when that matters that much to her, and she's only allowed to race every 4 years for what it is that she wants to make all her endorsement and career dreams come true.
But you would agree the NBA players probably have more experience on this front, just getting through the drug test, right? They're not doing it every 4 years. They're doing it every year.
You have it Wizenators? Like, what do you guys have here?
I don't want to speak from a place of ignorance. I don't smoke marijuana.
Latino beige Wizenators, and introduced to us by Ontario Smith, the former Vikings running back.
Well, when Amin Elhassan comes in, I think he'll actually be able to shed some light on how NBA players used to beat marijuana tests. I imagine there was a lot of the league not caring. The World Anti-Doping Agency is more incentivized to care, but they've been doing this for quite some time. And there have been a lot of players that have been reputed as such that have made their way through Team USA basketball and have found ways around it.
We will talk to Amin Elhassan when he lands. He's perpetually on a red eye these days, bombing in here, smelling of liquor and whatever it is that New York dragged into his life. But before we go down the path of the hijinks and sports, a lot of UFC stuff to talk about, I did want to mention, because I believe that we're the only show with this kind of reach and this kind of roots in what it is that's happening in Cuba, to talk to you a little bit because of what this thing is that you guys are listening to and watching. And because many of you have seen us grow up over 17 years around here and know that we're a proudly Miami show, and know some of the history and weird politics over the last year that have happened in Miami that create great tensions, and the rest of the world, whether it's Elian Gonzalez or what's happening now in Cuba, it can feel very lonely to have 90 miles off our shore something that only we care about, that largely feels like America, which believes in freedom, isn't paying attention to. And so one of the places that it made an appearance, 20 years ago with Elian Gonzalez, is the very idea of a mother dies at sea trying to get her son to freedom. Cubans understood that child needs to stay here. America was like, he needs to be with his father back in Cuba. And I think that's a fundamental disconnect between not understanding what it is to flee freedom or find freedom and just being born into freedom. And so what you're witnessing right now in Cuba is something I did not see happening in my lifetime. I thought, and it felt for a long time, like Fidel Castro was going to outlive my parents. He outlived my grandparents. I thought, and even though there's hope today, still fear that regime, that communism, that free Cuba is not something my parents are going to ever get to see. But what I saw yesterday, I've never seen before, which is a people so desperate. And now keep in mind, when I say a people so desperate, Stugotz, these are people, that ocean is the world's largest graveyard. Haiti and Cuba, people trying to get to freedom with such desperation that they get on vehicles made of crap and tires and whatever else, and don't know if they're going to see their family again because of the level of desperation, and yet still they fear the government enough to choose that form of desperation versus protest in the streets desperation because we don't have medicine, we don't have food. We've reached a level of desperation that is uncommon, and Joe Biden just has such a legacy-making shot here on stopping suffering. Stopping suffering. Like I know all of this stuff, and more than ever now, just gets into the political realm, but the embargo has not worked, and that party with ESPN in tow, went to Cuba and played baseball games under the idea of normalizing relations. And those people are so desperate for freedom, they're marching in the street. When marching in the street will get you thrown in a jail, Stugotz, for an indeterminate amount of time and with no need to explain it to anybody, never mind trials or anything. I've told you about, I think Cuba's still doing firing squads. They were recently.
But how does Joe Biden do that?
Just get in the game, first of all.
Yeah, but you're talking about military action, are you not?
I am talking about, first, being a leader that believes in freedom and takes up that cause publicly and with voice. Start there, okay?
Well, he did, and let's read the statement from Joe Biden on Cuba, as a lot of local politicians of national repute have been seizing on this opportunity. Usually, Cuban politicians are on the Republican part of the aisle. Joe Biden says of Cuba, "We stand with the Cuban people and their clarion call for freedom and relief from the tragic grip of the pandemic and from decades of repression and economic suffering to which they have been subjected by Cuba's authoritarian regime. The Cuban people are bravely asserting fundamental and universal rights. Those rights, including the right of peaceful protest and the right to freely determine their own future, must be respected. The United States calls on the Cuban regime to hear their people and serve their needs at this vital moment rather than enriching themselves."
You want him to do more? You want more?
I want a free Cuba. That's
Right.
what I want. I am not a politician. I do not have solutions for you. I'm not the person who calls for violent military action as ever a solution. I'm just telling you that you've got a weakened people and you have the optics of these people are suffering so much that, again, I'm going to explain it to you again, Stugotz, a desperation so grave that ocean is a funeral home for people trying to get toward freedom. That desperation has never resulted in my lifetime in what I saw yesterday, which is streets flooding. They fear that government, Stugotz. People do not understand. They don't. I know that we make jokes about our devices listening to us and Alexa. They're neighborhood spies. They're your freedoms. You can't understand the lack of freedoms. Never mind food rations. I can't explain to you where the desperation has to be for those people to take to the streets when they fear that government so much en masse and said, do something to us. There are reasons that you haven't seen this since so rarely and not since 1994.
But just so we're clear, them marching in the streets, just by doing that, they are taking a massive risk.
Yes.
Oh, huge. Yep. And the government's still oppressive in that way, even though Castro, for the first time in our lives, first time in my life certainly, is not running the country. Fidel is gone. Raul Castro stepped down. Now the president of Cuba is Miguel Diaz-Cancel. And the people are marching in the streets, and it's something that I thought would resonate when I was growing up. The day is finally here that the Cuban people are marching the streets looking for freedom, and we've seen a lot of this in Hispanic countries, and it doesn't necessarily
work.
It doesn't resonate. The SOS calls, it sweeps social media, but the United States has kind of gotten out of the great liberating military force game that they were a few years ago because of how widely unpopular those things landed, Dan.
Tony, where are you with this as a family that is proudly Cuban and a young person who, if my pain is borrowed, you're many years removed from the idea that your parents and grandparents are the ones who suffered this so that you would never have to suffer it.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario because as Cuban kids were taught about the evils of what happened in Cuba when, our grandparents and our parents' homes and jobs and basically livelihoods were taken away. And my grandfather passed away in 2013, and he was part of the Bay of Pigs invasion and was a political prisoner in Cuba for many years before he was, finally reunited with my grandmother and stuff. And just thinking about the opportunity that we all have right now feels like something that I didn't see coming in their lifetime or maybe in even my parents' lifetime. I thought this was going to be maybe 20 years in the future of, okay, people are in the streets. And I don't think it's to be understated how important it is to see protests on the street in grainy videos because they don't have Wi-Fi, they don't have cell service to give a 5G like crystal clear coverage of what's happening. And it's crazy because I didn't think that we were going to be here, and just seeing that now and understanding that we have an opportunity as a people, as a country in the United States, even though we sort of are out of the democratization of other countries. I just feel like something's got to give right now.
This is such a rare circumstance, right? We can't agree on masks, right? We can't agree on facts. But Stugotz, you got the Republican Party is tied to Cuban allegiances, and now the Democratic Party with Obama normalizing relations and softening the embargo. You've got both parties would prefer a free Cuba. Both, like you can't get agreement on anything.
It's not even that they don't have Wi-Fi and they don't have internet. It's that it gets shut down. So like the idea that some of those videos even got out is kind of crazy because they were shutting down the internet yesterday. They were shutting down power in places yesterday just to kind of stop the spread of information. And while it's something that I don't think a lot of us thought that we were ever going to see, it's also kind of a thing of, all right, but where does this go from yesterday, right? Because at a certain point, like you guys are saying, you can't have these demonstrations in Cuba. The government's not going to allow it. So that happened yesterday. But do they keep doing that? And what does that lead to? Because at a certain point, if they keep doing that, is the government going to start killing their own people in the streets to put an end to it? And once that happens, are people going to continue to demonstrate? Or is the government just going to decide, you know what, I'm done, I'm going to flee? And I think one of the frustrating things as a Cuban American, my father left Cuba when he was like 6 years old. One of the frustrating things is while we're all seeing what's happening over there, it becomes a political thing here where it's like, okay, the Castro regime was bad, but the Batista regime before that wasn't good. So was the Castro regime better or worse than that? And then it becomes a thing of, well, who's oppressing these people? And it's not about the oppression. Is it the embargo or is it the government? And it seems like the people who are suffering there always get lost because the people in this country, at least, are always fighting. And to Mike's point, what do you do if you're the U.S.? Because congratulations for putting out a press release, but that's not going to change anything. But are you also going to intervene militarily? Because I don't know that it's their place to do that. So ultimately, the people are suffering, but I think a lot of it gets lost into finger pointing as to why they're suffering and not figuring out how do we help the suffering.
For the U.S. to get involved, the ball needs to be advanced way further down the field. And how do you do that? You militarize social media. You weaponize it if you're the people. And I don't know if you saw the viral video of a Cuban rapper getting arrested in his home. The rapper was very politically motivated, denouncing the authoritarian regime. He was thrown in jail for the crime of resistance. They control social media out there. So it's an uphill battle, no doubt. But this is the first time we've seen these images. And I thought when I was growing up that the U.S. would definitely do something. And this is something we've been waiting for our entire lives. And politics has changed.
Uprisings do not happen in Cuba. And the reason for that is fear of Billy's not overstating it. Fear of being shot in the street because freedom, like it is why Cubans speak so highly of freedom. I understand that we talk about the flag a lot, and in America we like to talk about freedom a lot, but very few of us are risking our lives, throwing our lives to the seasickness of the ocean on something made of tires, possibly leaving our family because the government fear is that high.
Well, we take it for granted, obviously.
I think the interesting thing that Mike said, too, about using social media as a weapon, and I think about things that happened in like Egypt in the Arab Spring where they were using Facebook almost against the government until things were wiped out. You don't even have that option in Cuba. It's like so limited of what you can see and what gets out to the outside world. Like Billy was saying, like the Wi-Fi, they'll just shut down the internet. Like, all right, you're not getting it anymore. And it's something that we don't even understand. We can't comprehend the lack of those kind of things.
You're being followed in Cuba when you're a tourist. There is a desperation that lacks jobs. I can give you a lot of stories like this, but as an example, the last time I was in Cuba 30 years ago, okay, kids were in the street with what looked like balloons. They weren't balloons. They were condoms. There are no balloons. There happened to be condoms for whatever the reason. was Livan Hernandez is a champion pitcher in baseball. He's climbing up and down the stairs with his bicycle and driving to the park in his uniform and washing his own uniform. And then when he goes to Japan with the national team, he is stealing detergent from the Japanese hotel because they need detergent back where he is. You're talking about a really uncommon desperation, and yet still, it's never been this. Never a desperation so great. The choice has been, Stugotz, in the dark of night, get on the tires and throw your life to the wind. Don't get away from the government. Don't challenge it. Go try the ocean. See if it works. Go via Mexico if you can. Like, I don't know how many times Jose Fernandez tried. His father tried 14 times. Jose Fernandez, I think, was the fourth time, and his mom is, falls off of the boat, and then they go the harder route through Mexico. That's been the better choice than what you saw yesterday. That's to get away from the oppression, not to challenge it.
But think of that level of desperation where that's the good choice. That for some people, not all, where that seems like the best choice of the choices given.
It would be the choice of many people if you were brave enough to throw your life to the ocean.
There are places in Cuba that I believe are not even aware of what it is that's going on in the bigger cities. My wife was talking to her family yesterday. They told her the police are patrolling the street. No one's allowed to leave the house. That happened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the reason they were told is because of COVID. Now, there is a very bad outbreak of COVID going on right now. But the power was shut off and the police were not letting anyone out of the house while other parts in the bigger cities were protesting the government. Their control on information is not something that we in this country can understand. Another conversation that she had a couple weeks ago was, did you guys hear about the demonstrations during an exhibition baseball game that Cuba had here against, I believe it was Colombia, where there was protesters just on the field in the middle of the game, in the middle of Central Florida, holding up the game. And in Cuba, they thought that the game had been canceled, that the game didn't even happen. They didn't know that those demonstrations happened. They're told what it is that the government wants them to know. And they can shut off power and they can shut off electricity. And they don't know why it is that that's happening.
Normally, I would say it's a non-starter for the Biden administration to have anything of consequence on this outside of just the overriding message of freedom. We want freedom for everybody, but we're not going to get involved. But Biden was a part of the Obama administration that put forth an economic plan and normalized relations with Cuba to an extent. Now, the Trump administration tried to undo a lot of that, but these are the seeds of what the Obama administration was looking for when they argued for the economics of the deal. Biden was a part of that. So he does probably have to get a little bit more involved. Then he's going to get plenty of pressure from the opposite side of the aisle. And it's not just because Cuba matters. It's because Florida matters in terms of electoral votes. And that's why Cuba has been so politicized over the year, because Florida is perpetually a swing state.
Freedom, though, is a cause that no matter what we're disagreeing about, that both parties can agree on, and trying to help people not suffer is something. Obama, by doing what he did, by breaking down the walls on the embargo and bringing commerce to Cuba. You've seen what's happening in Miami, here in the streets of Miami, where the people who are free are asking, and many of those people are Republicans. Cubans vote Republican. They're asking for those people to be given a chance. It doesn't matter whether you think it's Cuba's government that has choked that country because it's still got 1950 Russian ladas in the street and it's stuck in a different time, or whether it's the American government that has choked that country. Both parties agree that those people need to stop suffering and that those people deserve freedom.
Right. And Cuba is often a point of frustration for Haitians, I think, too, because why are we giving this the megaphone that we're not giving Colombia or Venezuela? And we're speaking here a couple of days removed from
what happened in Haiti.
Leader being assassinated. And the reasons for that is still the Cuban base down here is so huge to swinging elections that you hear more about Cuba's foreign policy than you do about Haiti. And we should probably respect what's going on,
of course,
in Haiti a little bit more.
Well, I said he's got two chances. I said Biden's got two chances to do things that matter here with leadership. And what I'm telling you, Stugotz, is in my lifetime And since my parents left in 1959, a regime that outlived my grandparents, this is the most vulnerable set of circumstances that have ever existed.
That's crazy.
For change. And you are right to question. Look, we can fight about any of this stuff, and you can be hopeless if you want. You can say all those SOS movements that haven't worked for whatever the reasons are that they haven't worked. But what I'm telling you is that we are right now in the middle of something I never thought I would see in my lifetime. I didn't have any reason to hope that it would exist in my lifetime, and that the situation is more ripe than it has ever been for leadership to actually affect change. Weekend observations will be later in the show. Funniest thing from the sports weekend as well. Ariel Helwani will be joining us here in a little bit. A lot to talk to him about over the weekend, Stugotz, and a lot to talk to him about in general after leaving ESPN. I wonder what he thinks about what I imagine is making MMA fans crazy. I have fought with MMA fans for 15 years because they are such zealots about knowing their sport that they have come after me with a great deal of diligence because they don't feel like I know enough about their sport to talk about it. So I can't imagine what they're doing to Stephen A. Smith and Max Kellerman and how they're rejecting Teddy Atlas, how Ryan Clark, maybe Sedano, because Ariel Helwani has left. And so what he did with Chael Sonnen is something that Sedano has taken over. What he did with Daniel Cormier is something Ryan Clark has taken over. And now, because ESPN is in bed with UFC, which it rejected for a long time because Disney didn't want to be in the business that John McCain was calling cockfighting. Disney was like, no, but now there's a lot of money there. And it's like, okay. And now Dana White's running the place and Ariel Helwani's getting run off. And they're flooding the place with their mainstream people. And I imagine people are looking at Stephen A. Smith and being like, nah, because you don't know what you're talking about. You're trying.
Right.
You're trying to get caught
but
up.
That's all he can do. Do fans want it to be mainstream or not? They want that sport to themselves?
Stugotz, do you want Stephen A. Smith talking hockey? I don't know.
I would love Stephen A.
Yes.
talking hockey. And to Stephen A.'s defense, we're all trying here. We're all trying.
It's a great
when
point.
it comes
Yes.
to MMA and ESPN. Their talent contracts have been a bit newsworthy as of late. They have boxing properties, but they don't have the top of the line pay-per-view fights all that much. You got to get some more juice out of Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith and covering the fight game. They sound well versed as people that are clearly educating themselves, but Teddy Atlas on this thing was a bit confusing to me.
Mike, boxing and MMA fight each other. They judge each other, and you're bringing your boxing people over in Kellerman and Atlas, and you're bringing Stephen A. over, and he's a generalist. Like, you cannot, and this is not an indictment of Stephen A. You cannot know everything about everything.
He can.
But he's being used as someone. Okay, you say
And
that.
he does.
You
He
guys
does,
say that, but MMA fans, I assure
They're
you.
always going to do that. They're always going to reject him.
They're not receiving him that way.
And no, they're not. And they should, because that's crossover appeal. I would love I like hockey. I would love Stephen A. on hockey coverage. I would have loved Stephen A. on Euro coverage. Yep. And I love soccer. I've been accused of being one of those soccer zealots, right? I want to grow the game. I want mass appeal, and you can't get more mass appeal than Stephen A. Smith on that network.
I don't know if additional people are tuning in because Stephen A. Smith is on the coverage, but if they are, isn't that what the UFC and their fans want?
I don't think they are, but I would say
maybe they are, though. We don't know.
Well, okay. I think they might be, and no, they must be tuning in because ESPN is validating it. But I promise you, Stugotz, and I haven't even searched any of this, so I don't know it because I've seen it. I just know this fan base. And I know, Mike, you saw it. We were doing MMA coverage for a decade before it was being done mainstream on places like ESPN. And I knew plenty back then, although I've soured on the way that the sport is run in a way that makes me uncomfortable. And so I'm vastly less interested and less informed than I used to be. But I was plenty informed and not informed enough for MMA people. And what I'm telling you is on that sport, I know more than Stephen A. Smith does. He's researching. He's trying to get caught up.
Wow. You know, we need to have a MMA decathlon of some sort here. I will say though, MMA.
I wasn't bragging. I'm not saying that.
It felt like you were.
I'm not saying
game.
I'm not saying that my knowledge is that great. I'm saying that MMA fans can sniff it out when your knowledge isn't that great.
Yes, you're absolutely right there. To the point that I kind of feel like I, too, know more about MMA than I let on, but I want to speak in vague terms because I'm so afraid of screwing something up. Like when you said BJ Penn, as opposed to the Aldo fight. They'll jump down your neck, and they're very defensive about their sports because they like to say that they've been day ones, and it's a little counterintuitive for me. It's why I don't jump on anybody about soccer, because I want the game to grow here in the United States, and I think it's good. You think John Buccigross or Michael Eaves are going viral because they're wearing a white jacket and two gold chains across their neck? No, they're not. Stephen A. goes viral, and that's more eyes.
Bucci Mane.
I wanted to ask you guys how you felt about Stephen A. Smith private planing it and saying, Milwaukee, here I come, taking a photograph with sunglasses and his legs crossed as if he didn't know the photographer was there. I'm just, what was the general feeling? Because private planes, that does not happen at ESPN. Not even the president of the company gets private planes at ESPN.
For Stephen A.
He had to. Herb Street is, I believe, the only guy who has had a private plane, and I believe Dilfer got laughed out of the room and then out of the network when he requested a private plane. And
Herbie got one?
I think, well, he needs one. He's got something. He does something somewhere Saturday morning, and then needs to get to another game on Saturday night.
Dan, as an expert in mixed martial arts, what'd you make of the guillotine attempt by Conor McGregor? Obviously not known for his wrestling ability, going up against Poirier, who is known for his mixed martial arts. Teddy Atlas made the gambling analogy that he really harped on for way too long. He was trying to explain what all in and gambling meant for a good 3 minutes. I was like, I feel like I'm crystal clear on the analogy. But your expert review of what happened in that very exciting first round.
I fell asleep.
It's late.
Do you know how hard it was for me to just make it to the post-game show we did last night? And that was an 8 o'clock start on the finals. And not only did I fall asleep, I kept getting angry that the noise in the bar downstairs would wake me up because people were so noisy while watching the fight. So I did not and cannot give you the technical expertise of what it is that Conor McGregor did. I did enjoy the hijinks and the ridiculousness that happened while he sat on his ass and Joe Rogan came to interview him. But we've got the foremost expert on these matters. This guy brought journalism to MMA. The degree of difficulty on what Ariel Helwani did in his sport was magical to watch. You can watch him now. He's working for Vox Media, Spotify, BT Sport, Substack. He's doing a variety of MMA things. So let's talk to him about this, and thank you for joining us, Ariel. I know you've been on before, and you've welcomed Stephen A. Into your sphere because you, like Mike Ryan and Stugotz were saying, more mainstream eyes, that's great. Get more people involved with the sport. It's wonderful. I don't believe that the fan base in the sport feels the way that you do about that, Ariel, because they can be snobs about this stuff, and they want everyone to have the knowledge you have, and they can sniff it out when people don't have the knowledge that you have.
Well, Dan, you are a phenomenal journalist. Good morning to you and the whole team. You're just going to drive right by the stop sign that is this luchador mask that I'm wearing. I saw the thumbnail this morning. I thought we're all dressing up, but apparently I didn't get the memo that we're taking off the masks. So should I take this off? I'm a little bit embarrassed.
You should keep it on. We pranked you. We just said that we were all dressing up and we tricked you, but please keep it on. I was hoping that you would never mention it, that you would just spend the whole time doing the segment without ever taking it off. I feel like one of those people that, one of those women that come to the Halloween party and they're just wearing the wrong outfit. If I'm being honest, I'm a little bit embarrassed right now. Well, don't be embarrassed because, Ariel, this is all part of an effort on our part. We hope that in the next 20 minutes of asking you questions, something goes viral and without explanation, you being maximum journalist are wearing a wrestling mask and no one explains it.
You shall refer to me as El Nariz throughout this interview.
La Nariz, no? Isn't it La Nariz?
No, well, listen, I get to call the shots around here, Dan. And of course, I want to wish you all congratulations on this new venture. I've been sitting by my phone, everyone telling me, including the Andrew Marchands of the world, that I was joining the pirate ship, and yet the offer never came. So it's a little bit disappointing, and I guess that's the state of journalism. But I consider myself, whether you like it or not, to be an extended member of the pirate ship family. Okay, now that we got all that out of the way.
We got it out of the way, but Ariel, and you are credible and you are the top of your profession, but you're also a liar. The offer did come.
Listen, we're doing pro wrestling here, Dan. We're doing pro wrestling. I'm trying to protect us all. Kayfabe, Dan. How dare you? How dare you, Dan? You just broke kayfabe in the first 2 minutes of this interview.
Yeah, and Ariel, I'm sorry. I took all the money.
That's why the offer wasn't better.
Spent it on Tahoe.
That's why the offer wasn't better. Clearly Vox had a better offer because Stugotz took all the money.
That is true. But I love you guys, and I watch with great admiration from afar. In any event, okay, back to what happened on Saturday. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of different feelings and emotions regarding all of that. I mean, I was there for 3 years, and then I wasn't. It doesn't even seem like I was there anymore. It feels like it was just like some sort of fever dream. I will say this about Stephen A. He has a true, genuine passion and interest for the sport of MMA. It does not offend me, nor should it offend anyone who is watching when he is up there, because the man has actually been watching MMA. Like, there were times where I was at the Seaport Studios and whatnot, and I'm just sitting off to the side. No one wants to talk to me, of course, because I'm the big loser. I mean, like Mina and Pablo, they're all there. They're the belle of the ball. Jacoby, no one wants to talk to me at ESPN. I was the biggest outcast in my 3 years there, and we could get into that if you guys want. But Stephen A. would look for me.
I remember when Will Kane was based out of that very same studio. So
yeah, trust me, Will was way more popular over there than I was. Stephen A. would look for me and actually sit and talk to me about like some rant, Junior Dos Santos versus this guy. The guy appreciates and knows his stuff, so it doesn't bother me. MMA fans are like those fans of a band who, they saw their little band playing the dive bar, and then it makes MSG, and they all, wish that it could be like the good old days. But I think they need to lighten up a little bit. The reason why they get so upset about these things is because the UFC and MMA as a sport has developed some amazing analysts, guys who are still active fighters, guys like Bisping and Cruz, guys like Paul Felder and Daniel Cormier. All those guys deserve to be up there to talk about the sport and get that shine. So I think they feel a little bit defensive and territorial about it.
Did Dana White run you out of ESPN?
Wow, we're just getting right into it. So you really want me to answer this question wearing the luchador?
Yes. Without mentioning it, let me try again so that we can have the moment neat and we can go
Juju?
So we can have the moment viral. No, let me ask it again. Let's try again. Are you ready? Yes. Did Dana White run you out of ESPN?
So I can't answer that question with yes or no, but I will explain it like this. From the moment it was made public that I was joining ESPN, unbeknownst to me, on my life, on my kid's life, I didn't know when I was hired by ESPN, I didn't know that they were in talks with the UFC. I had no idea. At the time, they really had like one MMA guy on the staff. I thought, all right, the sport is growing. Conor McGregor, they want to beef up the coverage. I had no idea about the other stuff. And then if you recall, and you can go back and look, initially they signed them to a 10-card deal, ESPN Plus only. And then I was like, all right, they're not the sole exclusive broadcast partner. I could live with that. And then it became the whole freaking thing. And then I started to get nervous. So from the moment it was made public in mid-May that I was going to ESPN, and at that time it had already been out that they had signed this deal with ESPN, the UFC did. Dana White tried to get me not even to make it to my first day. He raised hell to try to stop me. My first day was June 15th, tried to stop me to get to the first day. Now, to the credit of a lot of the executives there, they all said no. They all had my back. They gave me shows. They gave me opportunities. But for the next 3 years, it was, one roadblock after the next. It was one issue after the next. It was all kinds of stuff. I'll tell you a story. I've never even shared this story. When I would be at events, Dan and everyone, and let's say it's the weigh-ins, right? And there's a desk there and I'm doing something beforehand, but Dana White is coming as a guest in 30 minutes or something. I would have to be escorted out of the venue because per his request, I couldn't be in his vicinity or his line of sight. So here I am on the set of a company that I work for, and security, the nicest people in the world, who were embarrassed that they had to do this, would tell me, I'm sorry, Ariel, we have to walk you out. You know how that makes someone feel? We have to walk you out of the venue because Dana White doesn't want you in his line of sight. I said, I'll sit right over there. I won't even look at him. I'll look at my phone. What are we doing here? So that's the kind of stuff that I had to deal with. I couldn't go backstage. I couldn't do a lot of other stuff. All that being said, DC and Helwani, Ariel and the Bad Guy, Ariel Helwani's MMA show. I had a very successful run there. They let me do sidelines. I have no ill will towards them. I know what they were having to deal with. I know that the issues that were brought upon them by him. And for the record, they did give me an offer. And it was an offer that I think a lot of people covering MMA would be thrilled with. At the end of the day, there was an offer that I had to turn down. They could have easily said, thanks for your time. Let's just go our separate ways. But they did give me an offer. It was not an offer that I felt was fair or that was, what I was looking for or even reflective of the work that I had done for the past 3 years. I was 100% disappointed by the offer. It was not what I was expecting. And so could you come up then with the theory that, hey, they made this offer to say that they made me an offer so that people don't blame them because they were, listening to Dana White? You could come up with that theory. I'm just going to choose to say, hey, at the end of the day, they paid me for 3 years. They lived up to their contract. That's something Fox Sports never did. They let me go when he asked them to let me go. So I give ESPN a lot of credit for that. But of course, I never expected to go and be a member of ESPN for just 3 years. No one expects that. And so in the end, they gave me that offer. I was allowed to look elsewhere. I'm now a lot more free, independent. I'll be honest, getting paid a lot more. So it all kind of worked out. I think he did me a favor. But that's why I have to give you that long preamble when you asked me the question, did he run me out? He didn't make it easy. He probably thinks he ran me out. He's probably, in fact, I know he's celebrating that I'm not there anymore. But I would argue that, he did me a massive favor as a result of all of his complaints over the past 3 years. Does that make sense?
Yes, you care about journalism. You brought journalism to that sewer. I mean MMA, not ESPN. And you suffered trying to do journalism. So can you explain to us what the obstacles were? Because Dana White has no reason to care about journalism.
The obstacles at ESPN or throughout my life there, like covering the sport?
Well, I'm talking about the obstacles specifically. The degree of difficulty, I don't know if people understand the degree of difficulty of what it is you've done, which is you become the Howard Cosell of that sport that doesn't have a use for journalism with some real bullying involved from the top of the power structure, a guy who likes to bully, and you made yourself matter as an independent entity that cares about journalism with credibility in a way that has an audience. They respect your credibility. You care about it. Then you go to ESPN. You got their guy in charge who doesn't care about it, who's gaining more and more power over there because his streaming service matters. He's gone mainstream, and he doesn't want you there. So I'm asking you, obstacles on your journalism while there.
Okay, yeah. Well, while there, you see, here's the thing. I don't want anyone, because I know they'll say like, oh, here's Ariel whining and complaining. I'm good. I'm happy. In fact, I haven't been this happy in quite some time because I feel the freedom in my soul to do what I want. It would come to the point where like I would tweet something and, I would get in trouble for it because no one wanted to upset, because I think there was a hope that things could be repaired. Early on in my time there, I was asked to reach out to maybe extend an olive branch, even though I felt I didn't have to extend any kind of olive branch. I was cost a lot of money by this man over the course of my life. I'm worth nothing. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He's got houses all over the world. I'm some schmuck with 3 kids who's just trying to, live out the American dream. And I was asked to extend an olive branch, and I did, because I wanted it for the better of the situation for everyone involved, and I never got a reply. Wasn't allowed to go backstage. My first 6 months there, Chael Sonnen and I, who I know that you've had on the show and I think you hold in high regard, we did a pre-show and a post-show called Ariel and the Bad Guy. This example might not mean anything to you guys, but I thought that we had the chance to be the American MMA version of the Don Cherry, Ron McClain tandem.
Great show.
Yes, those two guys were an institution. Cherry's final days, didn't end well in Canada, but for 50 years, they were an institution on Saturday night. I thought we had that dynamic, and for 6 months, we did it, and I couldn't have been happier. And then the moment the TV deal started in January of 2019, right before I was told, you're out. And I would have to sit at events off to the side while everyone else worked, and then I would have to come at the very end to do a little like YouTube hit or something like that. So it was always made uncomfortable. Now, Monday through Friday, I was treated like a king. I had my shows, I had all this stuff. But when I came to the events, it started to get very, very uncomfortable for me because they were doing everything in their power to make me feel unwelcome and all this stuff. And so, again, going back to the thing, like, I don't want anyone to think that ESPN fired me or didn't extend any contract. They did. Of course, it wasn't what I was hoping for, and you could come up with your own type of theory as to, why they extended the offer that they extended. I think I'm worth a lot more than they offered, and I'm out to prove it. And I'll just add, the pettiness knows no bounds. The real estate, as they say in Las Vegas, I hear is pretty good these days. For Ariel Helwani, and I'll talk to myself in third person, it's rent-free because what they did on Saturday, the 2 shows that I had with Chael and DC that I helped build, that I was the one who was promoting more than anyone, I mean, all day incessantly. I never got a single plug in my 3 years there, a single plug on any type of broadcast for 3 years. I stopped counting at the 7th plug on Saturday for their 2 new shows. And I love DC and Chael Sonnen like they're my brothers. I will literally go in front of a car for those guys. They're the most loyal friends. But the pettiness to try to raise those shows because now I'm out, to try to put me down because now I'm out, to try to continue to hurt me, put roadblocks in front of me because I'm out is laughable to me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue covering this sport. I'm going to continue doing it the right way and the fair way. And they could bring their parade of sad sack fake journalists to their events all day long to do whatever they want to do and, bow down to them. I'll be just fine with the people that I'm working for. Vox, Ringer, Spotify, Substack, BT Sport. I'll be just fine. Not going anywhere.
Take out Sedano by name. Take him out by name.
Listen,
take him out.
Let me just say something. Let me take this off now. Let me just say something about Jorge Sedano. When I am getting serious. Yes. Here I am, Ariel Helwani in the flesh. I went to Tim Corrigan's office, and this is why I wanted to be known so much that I don't hold any ill will towards ESPN. In fact, the plugs that I'm talking about, they're not ESPN. As you guys know, the UFC controls the production. ESPN can say we want Kellerman and Stephen A. there. They can have influence, of course. They're not just sitting back in Bristol. But the UFC runs that production. It's one of the only sports entities on ESPN that the league, the partner, if you will, actually does the producing. That's why you'll never see me, or you didn't see me in the 3 years on those broadcasts. So I walked into Tim Corrigan's office. I don't know if that name means anything to you guys, but he's a big time guy at ESPN. One of my favorite people that I met at ESPN in September of 2019. I said, you don't know me. I'm sure you don't know me. I'm sure you know nothing about my work. I love the NBA and I would like to work as a sideline reporter. He said, I got to be honest, 20 plus years I've been here. No one's ever walked into my office and said this. You're right. I don't know you. We don't have any room for you. But if something opens up, I'll give you a call. True to his word, he gave me a call. I got to do a bunch of games. It was awesome. The first guy to reach out to me when he found out that I was doing this, and the guy who checked in with me during games, before games, after games, weeks later, was George Sedano. That guy is a mensch of all mensches. I love that guy. I really do. And I'm happy that he's getting to work with Joe.
And you called him a terrible fake journalist. I'm pretty sure.
No. Please. I wasn't referring to him. I was referring to the SNL skit at the press conference on Thursday. Did you see that? If SNL writers were writing a skit based on what they thought MMA media looked like, it was the crew that showed up at the press conference on Thursday. Please, I don't want this. I love George Sedano. I don't want and Ryan Clark. I mean, I know he played for some loser franchise that like that. I mean, did you see what happened to them against the Browns? It's cool. He's from Louisiana. It's great and all, but there's only one Helwani, guys, and he's looking right at you right now.
Yeah. Pipe bomb. Wow. Pipe bomb promo.
I mean, I lost count. 7th promo, 8th promo, 9th promo. And guess what? The ratings won't even be 1/4 of my ratings. They could promo all they want. Yeah! I'm still here. I'm still standing the whole damn show.
Yeah! Shout out to Fox Media, Spotify, BT Sports, Substack. He is everywhere.
A lot of jobs.
Buying a shirt on Pro Wrestling Tees presently.
Yes.
That's right. Helwani. What else you got, Dan? What other hard-hitting questions? I see you bringing out the 2011 ESPN All-Stars each and every week. It took you freaking 6 months to have me on this show. What else you guys got for me?
Fighter pay, Dana White. What do you got?
Okay, I mean, they signed this very nice deal with the funniest thing is that when they signed this uniform deal, I mean, could you believe fighters who are the most interesting people on the planet, the most unique individuals on the planet. I remember Mike Tyson, black shirt, black shorts, black boots. I mean, iconic stuff. I remember Chuck Liddell with the blue, the ice, Tito Ortiz with the fire. Now you want them to all look the same? You want them to look uniform? How does that work? Why would you do that? Of course, you would do that to make money. Now, they say, oh, we want it to all be clean. We don't want it to look like NASCAR. We don't want the Condom Depot days anymore. Meanwhile, now they just signed with Venom, which is an MMA only. Like you talk about blue chip. They ain't blue chip, with all due respect. They're an MMA brand. Good on them. They got the deal. Now they signed with a crypto company. Crypto, I don't even know what crypto is. Is that real? What is that, Pokemon cards? I don't even know what that is. And they put it on the front of everyone's kit, as they call it, because they're very European. $175 million 10-year deal, the biggest in UFC history. Guess what percentage of that money is going to the fighters?
Oh, no.
Guess what percentage?
No.
$175 million for 10 years. I don't know what that math is. Was that $17.5 million a year?
It's got to be something, right? It's got to be
5, 8%.
10%, 5%.
5%. Stugotz, what's your guess?
I would say more like I would say 10%.
It's going to be
10%.
It's going to be less
Mike, you
than
got something for me? What do you
15%.
Well,
15%. Tony, what do you got? Tony, what do you got?
I got 9.5, Ariel.
9.5.
Billy?
Chris, you got something? Chris?
7%.
10%. Billy, what do you got?
30%.
30%. All great guesses. The actual retail price is 0%. 0% for the fighters.
Thanks,
Just like the 0% that they get from the TV deal, just like the 0% that they get from all those other sponsors that are all over the cage. Look, I care deeply about this sport. I love this sport. You know, one time, one of the complaints was that I'm too negative. I'm too negative about the sport of MMA. I would argue that I did more in 3 years to promote the sport of MMA and the UFC in particular on ESPN than anyone, including Dana White, with my positive takes, with my appearances at 9 a.m. on SportsCenter and all that stuff. I have done more, I think, to try and let people know about this sport than anyone. And that's not me trying to give myself the old Barry Horowitz to pat my back. I love this sport and I love these fighters deeply. And so when I find out that a $175 million deal is signed and they get none of it, that breaks my heart. And I will be honest, sometimes when you see how the sausage is made in this sport, you kind of wonder, like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, look at the gate on Saturday, 16 million, and everyone's celebrating that they upped the bonuses from 50K to 75K. Do you know what 75K is to these guys? Nothing. I just want the fight. Could we get the fighters a little closer to 50% of the revenue as opposed to 15%? Could we do that? That's all I want. Because look, Conor McGregor is underpaid, regardless of what you may think of him. Now he's in a hospital bed because his ankle just snapped. He'd even get what he was deserved, what he was owed. Dustin Poirier didn't get what he was owed. They were the stars of the show. And of course, the UFC deserves some money because they built the damn thing and they put up the costs and all that stuff. I get that. But the fighters deserve more because of how dangerous this sport is. And that's all I want. That's all I care about. And so it's all coming from a good place. They view it as me trying to stir the pot, be an instigator, be too negative. All right, whatever.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, Guillermo. Do you put at Le Batard Show? Do you give yourself the old Barry Horowitz at Le Batard Show? We like free Helwani here. It is nice. You have
independent Helwani is a force to be reckoned with. There hasn't been a force like this in the world of mixed martial arts dating back since Hoist Gracie, UFC 1, who has steamrolled through the competition. Where's Parakeet Cortez at? I thought he was going to be up here. That's my guy. Where's he at?
He's in the chat doing the rest of us. Let's just do it. Let's get him out of here because he's got to get out of here. He's doing what we're doing.
For me? That's it? That's it? All of this for 18 minutes? I want more time. Who do you have next? Viva la revolución! And where's that loser David Sampson who killed baseball in 2 cities? Where's he at? I thought he was going to show up. 10-7 Helwani all day, every day.
I regret so much that Metal Arc did not offer you more money because Stugotz took it all.
Of course you did. 8-figure talent right here. Put some more zeros on the check, guys.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
I hope the discerning among you are noticing what freedom sounds like when Ariel Helwani gets unleashed. That guy is very good at what he does. There are very few people across any genre in this journalism sports arena who have a mastery on their subject matter the way that guy has a mastery over his subject matter. And he's got plenty of nimble in him talking around the landmines, but that's what free sounds like right there. That's what unafraid sounds like. And it's going to be a pleasure to watch what that guy makes over the next 10 years with the freedom.
Apparently he's making 8 figures, Dan.
Well, we couldn't afford him. Happy 37th birthday to Roy Bellamy.
Happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
Thank you.
Old ass Roy's no longer a bit.
Right.
No.
You're an old 37, man. You
I'm
really
a very
are.
old 37. Yes, I am.
How do you look younger than 22-year-old DeAndre Ayton?
Because black don't crack, Dan.
But his did.
Yeah. Good shout.
Because he's 22 years old, and Greg Oden looked old before he was old, but that 22, go find me pictures of other 22-year-olds and put them next to DeAndre Ayton so that you can see how that does not look 22 years old. Amin Elhassan is flying in on a turbulent flight. He's going to be a little woozy. He will be here in a little bit. We will talk to Roger Bennett here in a little bit as well. Excuse me. Stugotz just blurted to Mike Ryan, penalty kicks, frightening.
I mean, they're terrifying. They really are. Like, you're playing this team sport for 90 minutes or however long soccer games are, and then all of a sudden it turns into a completely different sport where I think there is more pressure on an athlete taking a PK for his country than any other thing in sports. More, like, Dan, more pressure than being on the foul line, hitting big foul shots. You are left out there to your own devices with an entire country watching you. There is so much pressure, and you're expected to score. I think the percentages probably favor the kicker over the goalie, and so I just feel like it's
safe bet.
Yes. Safe bet.
Yeah,
I feel like it's the most terrifying thing in sports. I would not want to do it.
Right. This tournament was actually kind of weird because a lot of people were missing PKs at this tournament, and spot kicks really because there's no penalty when it gets there, and it's kind of unfair for a game to end like that, but those players are gassed at that point, and it's as good as any solution as we got right now. And England had a 19-year-old in the vaunted 5th spot where most penalty kick sessions end, and it was a 19-year-old that has never taken a penalty kick professionally for club or country. It's an impossible spot to put a kid in. He puts it on frame, but it's saved by Italy. It wasn't a very impressive kick from the spot. And England, for all these coming home stuff, once again.
Oh, my God, so close.
So close.
Once again, lose. This is about as far as I've ever seen England get in an international competition.
Well, it's as close as you can get. It's as close as you can get, and it unleashed immediately the racism.
Yeah, but there was a guy on Italy who missed a big PK as well. We'll never remember that. He won't get criticized. No one's going to blast him. And these poor guys from England who missed the PKs, they are getting torched
I
today.
remember the first time that I realized what you're saying, and be careful, Stugotz. It sounds suspiciously like you are moving away from your soccer is dead take. It's the first take that you've had other than soccer is dead on this sport in about 20 years.
I just like shootouts. Like, those are exciting. Let's get straight to the shootout.
It's exciting. It's a terribly distorted way to decide it. I've compared it before to, Super Bowl goes into overtime. Let's have the quarterbacks throw the football through a swinging tire or have the field goal kickers go out there and just try stuff from distance. It's a ridiculous way to end, but there hasn't been a better solution. But the first time I saw it, where what you're talking about is when Baggio in the World Cup in Los Angeles for Italy, at the time considered the best soccer player in the world, and he seemed terrified and then kicked the ball as if he were terrified because, of course, how would you not be terrified to be able to think that much? No muscle memory, nothing. You are thinking that much. Oh, my God, everyone in my country is watching me right now.
Yeah, you can anybody. You don't have to like soccer to really feel the drama of that moment. And it was weird. I checked social media, and everybody was tweeting about this sporting event in the middle of their afternoon on Sunday. It was really cool to see. Dan sent out one of those tweets where he tries to alert you about another tight thing that's happening in sports. And I was like, wait a second. Is Dan doing this for soccer? Because I could have sworn he was doing it for the playoff hole between Smoltz and Del Negro. It was that shocking to me. And it was a monster event. It was a really good game. And the scenes outside and on social media have been super ugly as 3 black English players ended up missing penalty kicks, and the internet and English soccer fans have responded in a way. I don't want to paint them all with a broad brush, but there's a lot of bad apples there.
It's been deserved, though. It's earned history. It is wholly unsurprising. Before it even happened, I was getting texts from friends. Oh no, don't let it be this. Don't let it be the black guys messing up the kicks. That was the most predictable thing in the world.
Mike, how does it work with soccer and in England, like with sports radio? Are people second guessing the England coach today?
I listened to TalkSport immediately after. I was watching El Chiringuito on Fox Deportes, and I saw absolute scenes from social media and just really bad behavior. And I listened to TalkSport. And Gareth Southgate, there was a bit of a narrative flip. He's been the best manager, you could say, in England's history outside of well before my time when they actually won a World Cup. Proven doubters wrong along the way, kind of like Ned Yost and Jack McKeon, making odd moves that don't really make sense, but they kept being rewarded by these decisions. And it just ran out of magic at the very end. And his substitutions in this game, he subbed off one of his substitutions, had no shape, and had to escape a corner kick because they just put all attacking players in for these penalty kicks. And those subs ended up not working out. They ended up missing their penalty kicks, and he puts a 19-year-old in a very difficult spot. Now, you have no idea. Sometimes you don't even need to get to the 5th spot taker, but it's the most decisive spot. And usually it's some veteran comes up to you and says, I want it. There's a 19-year-old that's never flashed this skill professionally. It's all on what he's seen on the training ground, and it is not the same on the training ground as it is in a sold-out Wembley in front of a country that is dying to win a trophy.
Roger Bennett, I think it was the last time we had him on, was right before they were playing Germany, and we're going to lose. Of course, we're going to lose. That's all we do is lose. And because Mike had asked him, if you get past Germany, this isn't that much of a slalom course after that. And then England, every time I looked up, Harry Kane was scoring. Every time you looked up, and then they score 4 minutes into the game, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, oh my God. And then in the most devastating fashion possible, like as close as you can get to eliminating that heartbreak, you get your heart broken in the worst way where, wait a minute, am I allowed to hope? Am I allowed to now hope that this history of betrayal, we are losers as a country. This is all we do. In this sport, we lose. We are losers. The country, the world laughs at us. We lose. And we were out here saying how beautiful Harry Kane was.
Your wife has a thing for him.
We were looking at Harry Kane.
Which is weird because Jack Grealish is a dish on that team.
He is tall and regal and excellent, and he scores, and he is going to make the English winners. It's not going to be about bad teeth anymore. It's going to be about winning. And what ends up happening the most brutal way. And then here, as an added bonus, let's unleash the worst underbelly your country has. Let's right now unleash it that coach made a number of bad decisions in the way that you articulated them.
Weird ones that worked out.
None worse than lining it up that way to unleash the racism among the bad-toothed hooligans.
Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't his intention.
He's processing all that.
It wasn't his intention.
Well, it was the result, though. And it's coaching is not about the intentions, my friend. It's about the results.
Yeah. In tournaments, sometimes you have kind of wonky results, but these were the 2 best teams of the tournament, and the best team did win. Congratulations to Italy. I think they were phenomenal. It's a very difficult spot to come back in a final on the road because the final was actually in Wembley Stadium in London. It was incredibly impressive from an Italian team that arguably lost its best player due to an Achilles injury earlier in the tournament. It was an incredible display from Italy to come back in that game.
Mike, I just want to be clear. Does Harry Kane need to demand being in that 5th spot? Is that the kind of guy that would go up to the manager and say, hey, I got to be in that spot. I want that spot.
I love Stugotz. This is not
great.
Soccer is Dead.
This is great.
This is, wait a minute, I can have takes over here, too. I can
call people chokers. I can fire a coach.
Well, penalty kicks made me feel something.
Soccer is back.
5th has the most pressure attached to it, but sometimes when you slot your best pen taker or the person you feel most confident in that 5th spot, you have a situation where they don't even get to take the kick because they didn't take it earlier and they're out of it. So first, a lot of managers will tell you that's actually the most important spot for my best pen taker. But Italy went with Jorginho in that 5th spot. Jorginho is reputed as one of the best pen takers in the world. With the semifinal, he had one of that Trae Young celebration, went viral, and he missed his opportunity to put it away. A huge kick for his own benefit because he could have actually been eligible for Ballon d'Or in terms of best player in Europe, having won with Chelsea and having won with Italy. Now that the steam has been let out of that a little bit, but then the goalkeeper gets to be the hero. And unfortunately, Saka and all the other subs in Rashford and so on and so forth are now the villains in a very ugly social media scene for England.
I'm sure it's the parlance and not that you were in a hurry of some sort, but you hit me 3 times with pen taker, and I felt like the penalty could have been said there, or penalty kick taker, but were you in a big hurry?
You're getting on me for being more efficient than you just were?
Yes, because
you want me to say penalty kick taker?
Well, because every once in a while you use these brief shortenings of words that aren't pen taker. I guess what I'm asking you is that simple parlance, or is that something you're doing to speed it up?
No, that's how it's referred to in that spot. Everybody knew what I was saying there. It's okay. Hey, we're inclusive here. Yes, any questions that you have about soccer, feel welcome here, and I'll try to answer it a lot better and less snooty than I just did, Dan.
Amin, come on in here, buddy. Amin has made his way in. If you want finals coverage, again, you could go to our YouTube channel. Some of you are there already, but subscribe at Le Batard and Friends on YouTube. And this is a good time to tell you or remind you, because the people who support this show do so in a zealous fashion that is super flattering. And so we ask you to support the projects that we, are involved in that have allowed us to keep all of this free for you, including Amin Elhassan Cinephile podcast. Cinephobe, excuse me. Sorry.
You need a refresher. I mean, what is cinephobe?
What is cinephobe?
Ascertain. You got ascertain there.
It's the biggest fine we have.
What is cinephobe for the audience? We ask you to support Stupidity, South Beach Sessions, Mystery Crate, Brockmeyer as well. The Le Batard and Friends channel is something that...
Also Cinephile.
The network feed. Yes, Cinephile as well. Keep Chris Cody employed. But Amin is working hard, and he's flying in from New York. And if you want some finals coverage and to laugh at Amin for having analysis that predicted last night's game very poorly, you could do so by watching what it is that he did immediately after the game last night on YouTube.
Shawn Mendes is 22. Put him and Aiden side by side.
That's quite the comp.
Bad flight?
No, the turbulence was crazy. I guess it's still rainy and stormy, and this is the worst turbulence I've had in probably about since the time I flew in and threw up because I was watching you guys on the screen, and they had the rejoin where Dominique eats the paper that was in Stugotz's mouth. That was the worst turbulence I've had in the last decade. The second worst turbulence was today.
And so are you okay? Because you seem like you're a little discombobulated. You seem like you might be feeling a little bit ill.
Not ill. No, it was just shaken. I like when someone on the court gets hit and they fall down. We don't know whether they rolled an ankle or a knee, and so Mike Breen just says he's shaken up. Yeah, it's like a nice catch-all. Like there's something wrong with him. We don't know what it is.
Can you get for me the Amin Knows Basketball music that we always introduce him with? And it's not to mock him about the prediction yesterday. You could check out what he had to say. We did plenty of that last night. But what we haven't talked about, Stugotz, is the American team, Team USA, losing out of nowhere to Nigeria.
Mm-hmm. Game didn't count, though. If you're going to lose one that doesn't count, right?
54-2 in exhibition games. So, yes, it doesn't count, Stugotz, but it kind of does count.
They're in a space where all their games count if they lose them.
Yes.
Right. That's a good point.
That's the space they live in, so I want to talk to him about that, but we can't do so before we've introduced him properly.
Time to talk basketball. Amin knows basketball. He'll teach you basketball. Expert in basketball.
Should the alarm bells go off for us? They haven't practiced at all. That's what they said. They all talked about learning experience afterward. But one of the great things, Stugotz, you've heard me say this before, one of the great things that I love in sports is when I know that a group of people are excellent and talented, and then they're desperate at the end of a game. They were desperate at the end of that game, and it was like, you saw Nigeria, oh, good God, like, look out, and still, they lost, though. They lost, even though that tightened up quick because you saw the desperation of Team USA realizing, wait a minute, we're about to get embarrassed to start this off.
But how about Nigeria in that spot with Team USA, a desperate Team USA, and they're hitting 3 after 3 after 3 in enormous spots. You got to give them credit, man.
You got to give Heat culture credit, Stugotz. All those Miami Heat players on Team Nigeria. They came through in the clutch. Gabe Vincent, 21 points, 6 of 8 from three-point range. What's not to like? But, like I said, going into the game, USA was 54-2 in exhibition games lifetime since 1992. 54-2, right? 9 years ago at the London Olympics, they beat Nigeria by 83 points.
I thought it was 88. I thought it was 88.
5 years ago, Nigeria was beaten by 43 points. So there really is no excuses. Oh, we didn't get to practice. This is a team that historically gets its head caved in, and everyone points out, hey, there are 7 NBA pros on that team. You know what? I defy anyone to name them. Name them for me. Yes, they're right. That is true. There are 7 NBA pros on this team. I bet you can't name them.
I've got no shot.
And I told you that 4 of them play for Miami.
Well, Gabe Vincent. I can name one.
There's one. It's also the easiest name on this list. Anyone?
Precious.
Takers?
Yeah,
Precious. There you go. That's 2.
Come on, Stugotz, you got this. His name isn't even an actual name. It's 2
just
letters.
a couple of letters.
We'll take 2 letters.
KZ.
There you go. All right. One more.
We're just going to let the music play out.
All right. Yeah. So, these are the illustrious NBA names on this roster. Epe Udo. Remember him?
No.
Jahlil Okafor.
Oh, really?
Josh Okogie, who's pretty good and also had 4 points.
Contributor.
Caleb Agata, who's going to Summer League with the Nuggets.
I got to tell you, I have no idea who that is.
Mie Oni, who I think plays for Orlando. He had 6 points.
You think? You think?
That's where we're at.
You think?
Yemezi Metu, another 6 points chipped in there in 11 minutes.
I think you made that name up.
Look at First Take. Is Conor McGregor done?
That's how you do it.
I love the question mark. The question mark is what if they said Conor McGregor done, that's one thing. But say, is Conor McGregor done?
Many are saying.
Leave the door open, maybe he's not done. Let's have a discussion about it. That's what First Take's lower third is designed to do, right? Just to, man, like just those tones, right?
It's a really dumbed down version of, I'm not telling you to think, I'm just asking you if you'd like to.
The world is caught up. They caught up a few years ago, but that is alarming what you've said about Nigeria, where you go from doormat losing by 83, losing by close to 50, and then all of a sudden beating you.
Because I don't care how much practice time they got. This isn't Serbia or Slovenia or Australia or Argentina, where there are these guys with big-time experience both internationally and in the NBA, guys who are legitimate hard covers in basketball. These names, other than Josh Okogie, I don't think a single one of these guys is a starter in the NBA right now, other than Gabe Vincent when everybody had COVID. He's a starter.
Gabe Vincent is not a starter.
When everybody had COVID, he was. When everybody had COVID, he was a starter.
I think KZ got a start in that
If there's a pandemic, yes.
You're saying the world has caught up, but we're still not sending. We're not sending our best basketball
Kevin
players.
Durant
Kevin Durant's
is on
there.
that
No,
team.
I know, but LeBron's not
that was
there.
Lillard.
Anthony
Stugotz,
Davis
that
is
was
not
Lillard.
there. We're sending Zach LaVine.
You said Jason Tatum was the next Durant. He's
Stugotz.
on this team.
It's a really good
I
team.
understand that, but we're not sending LeBron. Come on.
We're sending Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard.
Listen to this. Kevin Durant, All-Star this year. Jason Tatum, All-Star this year. Bam Adebayo, All-Star last year. Was he an All-Star this year?
No.
Okay, All-Star last year. Bradley Beal, All-Star this year. Damian Lillard, All-Star this year. Jeremy Grant, okay, decent player, not an All-Star.
It's a bad take.
He
by
should not be an
Stugotz.
Olympian.
Draymond
No, if
oh, no.
your team has Jeremy Grant on it, okay, I'm sorry. That's not a good Olympic men's basketball team.
So
It's not.
five All-Stars can't beat Gabe
Stugotz,
Vincent, is what you're saying.
Wasn't Christian Leitner on the original
Yeah,
Dream
but they had
team?
to shoe in a college kid, Dan, on the original Dream Team. They had to. It was by rule. That's it. That's the only reason he was there. He had no business being there.
You guys ever watched the movie Hollywood Shuffle?
Yes.
Right, with the Keenan Ivory Wayans, and there's a scene where Robert Townsend is a investigator, right? And he walks in and he's asking questions, and everybody there is kind of like a martial arts / dance studio, and they're trying to be intimidating, and so he hauls off and punches a guy, drops him. Says, anybody else want any problems? And my man from American Ninja, what's his name? Roy?
My man,
Steve
James.
Steve James. Steve
What's
James
his
comes
name?
out.
the Roy wheelhouse. You always know to throw it to Roy in that spot because he will pull all of those names out for you.
It's quite the resource.
It's unbelievable.
When you look at it as a resource like that Roy provides, you're like, this is really helpful and useful. So Steve James comes out, and if you don't know who Steve James is, if you ever watched American Ninja, the movie, he's the American Ninja as far as I'm concerned. He's the big black guy, right? Comes out and obviously towers over Robert Townsend. Robert Townsend looks at him and then looks at the guy he just punched. He says, "You want some more?" That's what Stugotz just did. Like I just named Durant and Tatum and
He was
Bam
waiting
and
for you to
Bradley Beal and
finish.
Damian Lillard, and so he punches Jeremy Grant and says, looks at him and says,
your mistake, though, going to Jeremy Grant that
Right.
soon.
I was just waiting for Grant. I mean,
He was. Your point is what, though? I mean, we are to be alarmed. This team could easily be upset. This is something that can result in international shame because we are a long way removed from Magic and Barkley and Larry Bird, running roughshod over Angola. This felt a little bit like losing to Angola, given that, again, 9 years ago, you're winning by 83 points against Nigeria.
the thing, Dan, that's most missing, it's not even that they're that much better or we're not sending our best or they had all the practice time, we just met each other today. It's none of those things. What 92 had that no other team will ever have again is the ability to walk on the court and have people say, "Oh my God, the legends are true. Larry Bird in the flag, the great Magic Johnson. May I take my picture with you?" Like, no matter what you want to call Gabe Vincent, caliber NBA player, one thing we know is he's not looking at Damian Lillard like, "Oh my goodness, the Damian Lillard." He looks at him as like, "Yeah, I played against you like 3 months ago. I'm familiar. I'm familiar with your work."
Was that the usher in Coming to America?
Yes.
The concession.
Oh my goodness, I cannot believe it.
You seem to know so much about movies. How is that possible?
Well,
I mean, what the 92 team
Stugotz,
didn't have.
Hold on.
What happened?
Stugotz,
What happened?
He has an acid team, man.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
I'm with Stugotz. It's a
Sorry
bit
about
much.
that,
It's a bit
yeah.
much.
I mean, it's fine. That's not
Well,
that's
when you
not
put it that
why
way.
that's not why Stugotz did it though, because he did some math and said
No,
it's
it's
a
why I
bit
did it.
much.
oh man, let me tell you something.
I wanted to rip Jeremy Grant some more.
Yeah, please tell us something. Tell us something as to what Cinephobe is.
It's funny that you mentioned that Stugotz rip, right? Because it's R.I.P. are the first three letters of R.I.P.D., which is a really bad movie that Zach Harper and I reviewed on Cinephobe, the podcast where we review movies that are poorly rated on Rotten Tomatoes, and then we try to what?
Ascertain
Whether they are accurately poorly rated or maybe they didn't get a fair shake. That Cinephobe, produced by Anthony Mays, wherever you get podcasts. This month is John Travolta month, and the current episode is Killing Season, starring John Travolta and Robert De Niro, locked in the purest form of war, according to that movie, one-on-one.
People get so mad at me when I try and get the whole month out of you because they like that you tease it all month and to be surprised by what it is that you're reviewing. But you were saying, Stugotz.
I was saying the 92 team, what they didn't have is Jeremy Grant, okay? That's what they didn't have. You're not a good Olympic team if you have Jeremy Grant on your roster. Replace him with, I don't know, Trey Young, anyone, right? I guarantee you they don't lose to Nigeria.
He played 17 minutes.
Yeah, and...
You just want to put an injured Trey Young on the roster.
I want to put anyone. Yeah, an injured Trey Young is better than that. An injured James Harden. Give me anybody.
By the way, Zach LaVine, who you mentioned earlier, also 2021 All-Star.
Yeah.
That was the sixth All-Star that I missed there.
Right.
Who was current. And James Harden is too busy being little baby's imaginary friend.
I'd say that whatever you think of Jeremy Grant, he can offer this team a hell of a lot more than James Harden can in their present state.
Which is, his present state is ostensibly sober.
Which he certainly wouldn't, he'd find a way to fail the world anti-doping test, which we were actually talking about before you got here, Amin, and quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We found out that these NBA players who have gone now a season and a half with zero marijuana testing, and Matt Sullivan, who wrote the Nets book, says KD loves to smoke marijuana and can smoke with the best of them. They were subject to these tests, which also includes cannabis. How are these NBA players getting past these marijuana tests when they've been letting their freak flag fly?
And how, in general, do they get past drug tests in their sport? Because I was mentioning that the NBA wasn't ever actually interested in catching any of them doing this recreational drug.
No, I mean, look, Lamar Odom famously was on 2 strikes, I think, by his 3rd year in the league. And so the rest of his career, that was always a concern for any team that had Lamar Odom. It was like, yeah, he hasn't had a positive test in like 5 years, but he has one more. That's a massive suspension. So I don't think it's out of the question that players have had to skirt getting tested, and a lot of it is by they know when the testers are coming. Like the only time they really start to surprise you in the NBA is if you're already in the program. If you're like DeAndre Ayton, who missed 25 games to start last season because he had a 1 positive test, and he was afraid of the second positive test, which would have came with, I believe, a 5-game suspension. So he took a masking agent. But the problem with a masking agent is they can't tell whether you did it because you smoked weed or because you're on the clear or the cream or whatever other designer PED there is out there. So they just assume it's a PED and they give you the full 25. The moral of the story is they're still testing and you can still get caught. Now, in the last year and a half, basically since the bubble, they say, hey, you know what? Let's just leave this alone for now. All of this is, I believe, a smokescreen, no pun intended, for them to get rid of it in the next collective bargaining agreement. The league doesn't want it. The Players Association doesn't want it. It's just something that is a headache from a PR standpoint for a substance that really doesn't no harm.
But when we were talking about the specifics, and we'll get to Stugotz's weekend observations in a second, you can check out Le Batard and Friends, the YouTube channel. If you want finals coverage from Amin and want him to eat it, he will not eat it the way you want him to eat it, but you could check it out. But we were asking the question, when you find a situation that Sha'Carri Richardson is getting America outraged because she's failing a drug test, we're asking you, do you have any knowledge as to how these NBA players, I don't think Kevin Durant is stopping smoking. I don't think Kevin Durant, it fears getting caught. How is it that Team USA, can we add any empirical evidence or facts to the idea of nobody actually wants Team USA to not be playing in this tournament? You don't want to grab one of these corporations and knock him out of the tournament. You can do it to a track star from America. You're not going to do it to an NBA player.
Oh, man, I don't know. Dan, that's a great question. What's a more popular Olympic event from a rating standpoint, both not just nationally but globally? I think the 100-meter dash is actually much higher on the list of priorities for Olympic the IOC than men's basketball. Men's basketball, we like it because we like basketball. We like seeing these guys. But for the majority of the world, I think the 100-meter dash is the crown jewel event of the Olympics. And so I would posit to you that if they did it to her, they absolutely do it to Team USA. Now, I think Team USA is a lot more hands-on with their group of athletes than maybe the track and field athletes are, because they are all individuals and Team USA is a
Hands-on
team.
like Popovich is going to Durant, here's your Whizzinator.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, I think the conversation about guys can't smoke, right? That has to happen. I don't think there's any back channel that you can work and say, hey, can you just
But doesn't
lose
it
their
stay
sample?
in your system for like 90 days? I'm awfully cynical about this, and I got to admit to you that I don't have any information, so my opinion might just be gas bagging, but I'm applying all the cynicism to this and saying, you're going to tell me in the history of Team USA that there are no smokers on that team who don't know how to get around the tests? That you're telling me that everyone's staying clean for the Olympics? You think that's possible? Because I have a hard time believing it.
You're telling me Ryan Lochte wasn't smoking marijuana?
I don't know.
I mean, we know Phelps was.
Yeah, he said we were all high, right?
So there are very clearly ways to get around this. You did a great job in telling me how they skirt it in the NBA, and it's mutually beneficial. The NBA doesn't really want to ping them, and the NBA players certainly don't want to serve the suspensions. But the World Anti-Doping Agency, we have now a very recent high-profile case in which they flagged cannabis. So how are the players getting away with it? Moreover, how did Ja'Cory Richardson get caught?
Well, again, maybe there is a way. I would say that if there is a way, the NBA players are going to be way more sophisticated at finding it than the individual track star who, by the way, by her own admission said, yeah, I was dealing with some trauma and that's how I chose to deal with it. So it's not like she is a habitual smoker like Kevin Durant apparently is, according to Matt Sullivan, and is well versed in the ways of getting around it. She's just a young woman who decided to light up.
So, Dan, if you're a moderate pot smoker, which is several times per week, which we assume that Kevin Durant is doing it at least that much, right? It takes 7 to 21 days to get out of your system. 7 to 21 days.
Okay, I thought it was longer than that. Time now for Stugotz's weekend observations.
It is time for Stugotz to share his game notes. No one in the media will tell you what happened better than my boy Stu.
Dan, it is your Super Bowl week. Last year, it was swallowed up by COVID-19. It was an afterthought. This year, though, as we slowly return to normalcy, I digress. Dan, make no mistake about it. Shark Week is back.
Yes.
Exciting week for you, buddy. Enjoy it.
Are you going to an entire week devoted to Greg Norman? Is that joke coming?
Later
You'll
on.
be joining us tomorrow.
Shark Week. Speaking of back, Lucas Glover. How about that? Athletes that connote sharks. Ron Jaworski. Jaws. England's 55-year drought continues. Double nickel. Couple of fives cutting it up. Death. Taxes. Ed Djokovic on grass. The Joker. That man has 20 Grand Slam titles. He's one of 3 tennis players to have 20 Grand Slam titles. I think Federer and Nadal are the other 2. I mean, he's the best ever, Djokovic. This is crazy what's going on. We are witnessing greatness.
I thought Federer was the best.
He's
ever.
not.
Because then it was Nadal, and now it's Djokovic.
Right. Whoever gets to 21 first is the greatest.
Unreal.
Yep.
3 guys for 15 years, all with claim to the greatest
Crazy.
ever.
It's crazy. It's totally crazy.
Lionel Messi, do it in the World Cup. You know what the I in Italy stands for? I don't care.
Nah.
Conor McGregor. If anyone told you before the fight to break a leg, I don't think they meant it in a literal sense. I butchered that, but it was funny.
Was it?
Well, it could have been. Yeah, like break a leg, good luck, then he broke his leg.
Right.
Yeah. They didn't mean break your leg, Connor. That's all I'm trying to say, Dan. I said it better there.
I just like the way you said literal.
Ah, Jesus, Mike. Yeah. Conor McGregor, washed up.
Is Conor McGregor done?
I've answered that question. It doesn't get much better than a playoff on 18 featuring John Smoltz and Vinny Del Negro. Smoltzy, Vinny D, John Smoltz reminding the world why he's remembered for being a starter rather than a closer.
Wow.
What happened?
Wow. I mean,
Yeah, he was a starter, closer, and he didn't close, you know? Small. Lone save, Dana. You know what I mean?
thank you, Stugotz.
Put one in the drink, Danny. Well, he was trying to close yesterday, and he couldn't close. He put one in the drink. You know what I'm saying, Dan?
Billy, you were saying, yes. I don't know what Billy
I
was
was waiting
saying,
for
though,
an
because you
answer.
trampled him 4 times. Yes, Billy.
He was a good closer, though. He wasn't bad.
Yeah, he's
He
a
was
Hall
an
of Famer.
all-star.
Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
What do you remember John Smoltz for, though? Honestly.
Starting.
Name one game that he closed.
I mean, he closed games in the World Series.
Yeah, but name one.
Okay, I
Game
can't.
2.
I mean,
I think he started games in the World Series.
He did.
I don't think he closed games in the World Series.
I mean, game
I'll
3,
play this
95 series.
I'll play this game. I don't remember a single save of John Smoltz's career.
well, how many starts do you remember? You remember the one against Jack Morris? How many of the starts do you remember?
Oh, he was brilliant.
His performance on 18, now I can't even remember him as a pitcher. For me, he's the guy that put it in the drink on 18 against Vinny Del Negro at the American Century Championship.
The thought that Jose Altuve needed a trash can to help him be a better hitter is garbage. Chris Paul. Hey.
That's a good
I don't even think he meant to do that.
I didn't. Got lucky. Where was I? Chris Paul. Do it on the road. Dan, you know what the Bucks did last night?
They won a
They
home
held
game.
serve, Dan.
Yeah,
They held serve.
I'm sorry, I mean.
And we're still waiting for the NBA Finals to start. Let's go. Whoever approved the Deer District, I'm serious about this. They should be fired.
Okay, why? Spreading?
What do you mean? Dan, in what world, when we are dealing with a global pandemic that won't allow fans to attend the Olympics, is allowing 100,000 people who aren't wearing masks and who are cheering and screaming saliva into other people's mouths a good idea?
Fair enough.
Thank you. He should be fired, right? Or she.
Who? Okay, someone should be fired.
Yep. Deer District.
Some
Some
generous
terrible
person.
idea. I mean,
I for one support Stugotz. He's a very equal opportunity. Could be a woman, could be a man.
Stugotz, you shared a joint with 7 people on Saturday.
that's true. Damn it, Mike. Deer District, more like the Deer God District. Maybe we should downsize from a deer district to a deer den. Couple of deer sitting 5 feet apart on a big couch in a comfy den.
Cutting it up.
I thought of this when I was high. Smoking a J with 7 people. Deer District. The Deer District stands for disaster. Gareth Southgate. We get it. Take the blame off the players. Put it on yourself. Leadership 101. Also, no one thinks it was your fault. And your players choked. Just like I did. Got really into the soccer this weekend. I got to be honest.
It's unbelievable.
I didn't know I could fire
It's
coaches and stuff.
unbelievable. What's happened?
Controversial.
No, you
is it?
sack managers, Stugotz.
Oh, you do? All right. I love a good sack. Gareth Southgate. Perfect English name. The E in England stands for losers.
There is an E in it.
I mean, there's an L in there.
Probably should have went for London. I don't know.
No, I corrected you because I'm fairly sure in your original draft you thought London was a country.
I did. It's not. That joint, man.
Yeah,
it was a
it's
doozy.
a
I
joint,
mean,
the
these
earthquake,
cannabis
the
dispensaries
earthquake.
out.
Yeah, Moderna, your
yeah.
mom died. Yeah.
I mean, there's one every block, dude.
Yeah.
Sometimes 2. I mean, it's like you get finished with one, you walk into another, you get another J. I love that place. Few things more exciting in sports than penalty kicks, PKs. If they ditched the entire game and only did PKs, soccer would be alive and well. For now, it remains dead. Gareth Southgate said, "What people need to understand is they are not out there alone." Gareth looked pretty lonely to me. Also, Gareth, I don't like that name now. Do me a favor. Your sport isn't that complicated. It doesn't need to be explained to me. You're not splitting atoms. Seriously. What people need to understand is they're not out there. No, they're out there alone, Gareth, by themselves, okay? Like, the game changes. I don't like that. The game changes that much.
Yeah.
It should be only PKs.
You're a
Mike.
soccer expert.
Yeah.
You don't need the game explained to you. Explain offside.
I can't. Why do they name them select kicks, too?
Spot kicks?
Or spot kicks,
Well,
yeah.
'cause,
SKs.
And what I'm trying to achieve, let me answer your question truthfully
Okay.
without any snark attached to it.
Okay.
During the course of a game, if you get a penalty kick, it's because a penalty occurred. A foul in the box, a sending off. But at the end of the game, there really isn't a penalty involved. You're just kicking a ball from a spot on the field. So that's why you hear people refer to it as spot kicks.
Thank you.
6.
If your name is Max Muncy, you hit walk-off home runs, or you chop down a tree, or you're a serial killer.
Wow.
What happened?
That's some variety there.
I mean, Dan, would it surprise you if there was a big article in the paper, Max Muncy kills his 18th victim?
Yes,
I mean,
yes, it would. It would surprise me.
It would really? It
I mean,
would.
if the baseball
Or
player...
there was a serial killer and it was revealed months later that his name was Max Muncy.
I am generally surprised very difficult to surprise by the very existence of anyone who's a serial killer.
Fair point. Joint. Back-to-back 40-point, 15-rebound games in the NBA Finals. The G in Giannis stands for Jesus.
Just point. Joint would have been funny there. Sorry.
Yeah, the joint. Jack Leiter.
No! Wow. Instead of fair point, just point, joint. Come on. Come on.
Fair joint. Oh!
All right. I strenuously object.
Jack Leiter. Coolest name in sports. Death, taxes, and a boat parade at Tampa. Titletown. Champa Bay. Conor McGregor. Jake Paul, you are not. Conor McGregor saying Dustin Poirier would leave the fight on a stretcher, then being the one who leaves the fight on a stretcher. Conor, the Stugotz is strong in you. Make your PK. Never have to buy a drink in your country again. Miss your PK. Death threats and racism. Seems fair. NBA Finals and Major League Baseball draft on the same night. Hell is going on. Speaking of hell, Art Briles. Dan, those are the weekend observations.